We're live.
We're live. It's your boy Sambo.
Hey, I'm Colter.
Motherfucking Raines.
We got over in the corner of oh Bobby Stratton.
AKA
Slide up in here. Mr. Snuggles, as I like to call him. We're gonna talk about some shit. Some weird shit. Some crazy shit. So we were what was the question you just asked me? We were, talking about Trump.
I said, what about this president?
Yeah. And we were, you asked me if believe, I guess any of the theater, right? The political theater that's going on.
The dog and pony show.
Yeah. So,
how fitting that we have a reality TV show host as a president.
It's pretty wild. I tend to want to be objective with my politics, and that's not always an easy thing to do. But I will say this, that as far as a controversial opinion goes, Trump is a godsend insofar that he has become a catalyst for consciousness in the American psyche. So up until this moment, 2016, nobody really gave too many shits about politics. I mean, every 4 years, we all, start voicing our opinion and whatnot, but he was not supposed to be the president.
Not at all.
As far as the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations goes, like they had already more or less decided that Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton would be the two that were going. So I do think it's a really interesting time to be alive, and especially in American politics. We're in a really, though divisive time, we're in a really exciting time. But to answer your question about like whether or not I believe it, so there's certain things that, ironically, his executive orders have been, some of them have been very progressive. And that's kind of odd to think about because
it's out of necessity in order to get the other 52% of the population on his team.
Oh yeah,
he has to do things like that. Just a theory of mine is that he'll form an executive order to legalize marijuana when it gets closer to the election. After
he'll either play it as a, no pun intended, Trump card.
Exactly. There we go.
Or it'll be one of those things after getting reelected, because I do believe he will get reelected.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think that.
I don't believe in the third term, but he will run a second term.
No. But, I don't think we need a third term.
But people operate politically in America, so we're so used to professional athletes and sports and having a team. And the thing about being a Georgia Bulldogs fan is that if somebody fucks up on the field, you're still their fan.
Yeah.
There's no accountability for it, So when it comes to politics, is that really the kind of attitude we need as American citizens? But, well, no, now I understand he did this, but he also did this.
Right.
What I mean?
I think we should definitely try to avoid tribalism by any means.
Facts.
I think that, and as all three of us have been exposed to life in the buckle of the Bible Belt, like we've all seen what fundamentalists can do to like your dogmatic approach to life.
I mean, it's no Middle East, but it still has its detriment.
It's the dominant culture here is the religious right. No, so I think that the religious left in the modern culture, it's an atheistic approach, right?
For sure.
And it makes sense when you look at just like the political landscape of Judeo-Christian people. They normally like lean more towards the right.
It's royalty.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's a form of royalty that we've elevated to. But we do have a 73-year-old president. Like, people have a hard time understanding that he is 73 years old.
Like, probably popping Adderall every day.
But to think about every 73-year-old white man that I know in South Georgia, I don't want any of them running anything that I have to do with.
No, I don't. I also don't want any 23-year-old fresh out of university running things either.
I don't want to run anything. I'm 29. I have no desire to be in a political position whatsoever.
No, I just want to sit back with my little cup of tea and critique things.
Exactly. I do appreciate that he has brought a spirit of reform, though. Like, before Trump, we had too many people just on the fence. Like, no one really... Yeah. There was no spirit of revolution, But now with Trump, all of a sudden, we have this kind kind of divide and conquer mentality coming to a head to where we have separate teams. Again, the same thing with the professional football and things like that. People pick which side of the fence they want to be on, and then they ride that to death. And I think most political things have more morality involved than just, are you right or left?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I agree with situations on both sides of it, of either side of the spectrum.
Precisely. Well, like some of the executive orders that have come down, like it's things that, like, for me, somebody who is fairly liberally minded, I like to consider myself a diet libertarian. There you go. It's like I'll pay my taxes and contribute to my community. Absolutely. Now get the fuck off my lawn. Yeah. You know? Exactly. Or it's my right to privacy.
Or I'll pay my taxes, I have no problem, but can I see my receipt?
Yeah.
Let me see what my money is being spent on.
Yeah.
Where is that? Because
exactly.
If we're spending millions on war and only $5 for every million on education, then I don't know if I want to participate as heavily in that. You know, I still will.
Well, and also, and for those who don't know, our taxes are a loan that we give the government. Facts. Where's our interest at? Mm-hmm. Anytime I take out a loan, I got to pay interest back to the lender.
I mean, if that's the case, let me get my money back and I'll invest in firearms and ammunition. And if you decide you deserve a piece, come get it. You know,
2A all the way.
Exactly,
But there's the prison reform has come out of this administration. Mm-hmm. There's the Save Our Seas Act, which starts holding other countries accountable for dumping their garbage in our water. Our pollution has actually been going down steadily.
Incredibly.
What was it? If you're a public university and you do not uphold the First Amendment right for all of your students and faculty, you lose government funding. I forget what it was called, but it's a bill that was signed, wherein artists and songwriters will be making the majority of royalties rather than streaming companies and record labels. So, like, some of these things that, like, I mean, I find, because I just go through rabbit holes on the internet.
Yeah, dig deep.
Yeah, but it's not like you're going to see CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, these cats talking about.
You're talking about cigarettes being illegal for an 18-year-old, which is part of the distract while we do bigger things. But at the same time, he's doing amazing things. But I think the root of the problem is dispersion of income. Like, when you look at people that have been sitting in Congress for 40 years, and there's the same perspective for 40 years, and then the hoarding of wealth, then you can kind of see the implications of that on the long term. Of course, our students and our college students are having a hard time, because the wealth's being hoarded. It's not being distributed back into the society better. So there's a lot of really cool, like, pinpoints that you can see how Trump's changed the economy and helped the economy, but it's been mostly only benefits those who are already successful. It takes money to make money.
Right.
So
I do wonder, though, and Grant, I'm no economist.
Oh, you know. Me neither. I'm no nothing.
But with some economists would argue, and I've seen that, in order to fix the disparity problem, because America, we should all have the equal opportunity, and I'm a firm belief that no one in America should be in squalor. Nobody should.
You shouldn't have more than you need. If you have employees that you're paying minimum wage while you take billion-dollar tax cuts, that's obviously a problem.
Yeah, if you can't afford to pay your employees, you probably shouldn't be in business.
Now, I also believe he who doesn't work doesn't eat. So if you're not actually contributing and actually putting forth, then why should you get paid for nothing? You know.
Yeah. Here's something I thought about with the welfare system, right? So the welfare system, it doesn't do only what it's designed to do. Right. So one of the side effects we've seen from it, especially after Lyndon B. Johnson put it in, was that we started seeing the family break up because the government was incentivizing, particularly at first in Black American communities, to not have a man in the house. And you would be paid per child, and you would enter into a contract or
a career welfare participant.
Yeah. So it doesn't solve anything, right? The problems don't get solved by throwing money at it, though you need money to solve a lot of these problems.
Exactly. Introduce incentive without actually promoting someone to go out and achieve themselves. But the same thing happened with the projects. When they started building the projects in the South, they knew they could build an apartment complex straight up. Yeah. And put all the projects together and then leave all the land around it open for business and farming and things like that. Instead, they scattered them out on government property, made it illegal to build, illegal to own business, all this stuff. So now you have this position that you're placed in where you got a place to stay, You got to check. And the more kids you have, the more you make.
Yeah.
You can get food stamps, et cetera, et cetera. And to certain people, that intrigues them. It makes them feel like, well, I can do this as a career. I can literally do nothing. I can sit here and mooch off the government forever. Other people, it brings them shame to do it.
Yeah.
Like right now in my current situation, it would be impossible for my wife to actually go out and work and for us to break even with childcare. Like the amount of kids that we have and everything, that it is actually easier for her to stay home. But also, if I was to quit my job, we could get an insane amount of food stamps, an insane tax return, an insane amount of welfare and things like that because of the amount of kids that we have and then being unemployed and stuff.
Right.
To some people, that's an excuse why I don't have to work. Now I don't have to go out and create. I have such a natural ambition that I couldn't accept that for myself. I would rather be out pushing and going, even if it was to no avail, even if there was no promise of success.
Right. Which should be never is anyway.
Exactly, but that's not the general consensus. That there's going to be people, but I think people think welfare doesn't work to the extent that it does because they're looking to eradicate poverty, and you can't eradicate poverty. There will always be a necessity for the working class. I think the problem is that we deify wealth. We wind up worshiping people who have achieved these great things, just like Donald Trump. Like if you look at him, like he's done some crazy shit. Like he's had some pretty detrimental things. He was banned from New York from operating charities for stealing from a kid's cancer charity. Yeah. Now, does that mean that everything that he accomplished in the business realm is nothing? No. Like of course he had the capacity to achieve as much good as the capacity that he has for evil. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because he is such a coarse man. He does have such a abrasive personality and things.
Yeah. And people do tend to, as you put, fetishize his wealth.
Exactly. They're fans. They're not him as a politician no longer makes him a human. They look at him as, well, he can do no wrong. Yeah, he is infallible. He is a deity, more or less, and then people actually worship him. But to think about that, like every human does wrong. Every human fails. So of course he's going to fall in some places. Of course he's going to do better than others. But as far as running the military, he's not a general. He's not a high-ranking official. He has no time on the battlefield or anything else like that. Now, as far as a business owner in economics, he knows his shit. He knows what he's talking about. I think that he's doing everything that he can, but he's also limited by Congress. He's limited by the Senate. People that actually don't have term limits and wind up staying for decades, pushing the same agenda.
Yeah, you look at some of these congressmen and even generals in the Pentagon, and it's like, some of these cats have been here for 3+ presidents.
Exactly.
And we've been having nothing but 2-term presidents since Herbert Walker Bush.
But still, if you think about 8 years per president and 3 presidents, that's 24 years of the same dude voting the same bills down. Mm-hmm. How is change possible when we have the same elderly people operating our system?
Yeah. Right? Well, it's there's this guy, I don't know if he's still in the government, Trey Gowdy. He's one of the guys that was spearheading the Benghazi stuff with Clinton and the Pizzagate email server and all that. Pizzagate, Pedogate, research Pedogate. But it was, probably a couple years ago, he was asking this guy about our drug laws. And in particular, he was asking about marijuana. So Trey Gowdy had asked, what is methamphetamine scheduled? And the guy's like, well, it's 2. He's like, what is cocaine scheduled? He's like, 2. What is base cocaine scheduled? He's like, 2. He's like, okay. So, he then postulates, well, why is marijuana Schedule 1 if there's no empirical data, as you say, to make it that way? So as it turns out, the reason why is NIDA. It's also abbreviated as NIH, but it's the, let me see if I get this right, the National Institute of Drug Abuse. Okay. So NIDA is actually been the organization providing our government with quote-unquote objective data and empirical evidence. So one thing they did was that they took all of the pros of, say, psychedelics, with pot being the most minor of psychedelic.
The lowest level.
Yeah. And just did not even provide the benefits. So NIDA's whole stance is to find, because it's a drug abuse organization, so it's just to find negative consequences of controlled substances, and then they based our drug laws off of that. Mm-hmm. So think about how many people are incarcerated that are non-violent for psychedelics.
Facts.
Versus we have what we're re-releasing
pedophiles,
rapists, murderers, all this back on the street to make room for more. And when I look at history, and I see things, particularly during the Clinton administration with like the crime bills and things like this, and you start to see there's dots connected with people in the for-profit prison associations, and some of them came from
industrial incarceration.
Yeah, and some of these big wigs came from the record industry. So you want to start asking yourself, why was it that gangster rap was so heavily promoted? Because we didn't decide the culture.
Exactly.
The culture is, we inherit a culture.
We didn't create the timeline, we just existed.
Yeah, exactly. So why was it that in the late 80s, early 90s, before this crime bill got like put into place, all of these things were sort of leading into it. And
it's like a chess game.
It is. It's like 4D chess. So I think that we'll hopefully see within our lifetimes anyway a restructuring over our, in particular, drug laws and how people are incarcerated.
Well, I feel like it kind of has to happen when you look at the amount of people that are incarcerated and on probation, still dealing with finding employment and taking care of their family because they got caught with weed. Yeah, as Theo Vaughn put it, a confusing spice. It's not even a drug. So all these people are incarcerated. Meanwhile, the dispensary looks like the Apple Store. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have people making millions off of the same thing right across the way. But that's what people do when they get desperate. They sell drugs. And that's what our government's doing right now when they're desperate.
That's what they've been doing.
But if you look at the agricultural benefits of just growing weed, not even smoking it or using it medicinally, but actually harvesting it and using the hemp to produce different textiles and
even plastics. Now they have like
biodegradable plastic.
Hemp Kevlar.
It's incredible. Yeah. This one dude,
it's wild.
This one dude, I'll see if we can get a link to it. But this one guy has been building houses entirely out of hemp. He uses like a hemp composite to make like almost like a particle board, and they've been building houses completely out of them. And what's pretty cool about it is that while they're not biodegradable, the house will actually withstand the elements. It's still natural. It's not fiberglass that we're pumping into our situation. It's not steel that'll be there forever and rust over. It's actually biodegradable, natural stuff that we can replenish. And as far as fossil fuels go, there's so many better options for agriculturally with growing hemp and growing marijuana and things like that in order to benefit every single aspect of our economy. So it's pretty interesting to see that we have the money that we can make from selling it, the textiles that we can make from it to replace importing and exporting certain things. We have the massive amount of farmland that we do, and also the amount of oxygen that's released from hemp is incredible.
Yeah, because it's going to eat all that CO2 up.
It's insanely higher than cotton or corn or the cash crops that we grow now. But for a farmer to be able to grow cotton right now and ship it to California from Georgia, but he can't grow marijuana in Georgia and ship it to California, that's not the same pursuit of happiness. That's not the same opportunity to achieve. Right. And it's just because we're in as you said earlier, the buckle of the Bible Belt, we'll be one of the last states to change. Yeah. But
aside from, I don't know, I think we will be one of the last states to change. But I think it's also comes from like, we have a tendency to avoid difficult conversations, right?
And also our generation has a difficulty voicing their opinion. Yeah. As far as existing in the Bible Belt, most people don't want to go public that they believe in legalization. No. Just the harassment that you get on a daily level, just not even from the law enforcement of the government, but from the community. Just being like, if you posted a status that you're pro-pot in the South, then you're going to wind up having a lot of people that don't even want to affiliate with you as far as business goes or as far as just personal interaction. And why? Is my opinion.
I think a lot of times, well, one, it's a lot more difficult to come up with your own opinion, right? Fact. Like it's so easy to just
buy into the pitch.
Yeah. So, and I see that a lot with the current mainstream culture, where even with like something as divisive as the president's name, like Trump has become a curse word in the modern sense because people get triggered from it.
People wearing a MAGA hat get punched in the fucking head every day.
But interestingly enough, most of the people I find, as we were talking earlier, like I don't agree 100% with anybody on anything.
I love you. I don't agree with you about anything. That's all right. I'm not offended that you exist, but I think if we didn't, if you agree with everybody, you're a liar.
Yeah,
you have to be a liar in order to agree with everyone about everything. And
I think whenever you do make a stand for something, and as three people who have pursued in one way or the other artistic pursuits
Creative
in their
arts.
life, when you make a stand for something, you're going to piss somebody off. You're going to get enemies as well.
And people you thought were your best friends, people that are really close to you.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. I had just from personal experience, I put out an album 2 years ago, and usually with the theme with my albums is I want to have a different theme per album, and the reason being is because I make music for whenever I'm dead. I have something that shows, hey, I didn't waste my talents. I left something behind.
Legacy.
Yeah. So, like the first album I did was Southern Gothic. The last one was my version of punk. And the one I'm working on now is psychedelic. But the punk album, punk is supposed to piss you off.
That's the point.
There's a target audience.
Have you ever seen Henry Rollins? Well, he was not a...
He was my favorite Beach Boy.
He was not a lace curtain motherfucker. That's good shit. Punk rock hyena, man.
But after it came out, I started noticing like there were certain people in the community that they wouldn't shake my hand anymore.
Exactly.
And then I would realize like, oh, I'm not part of their social network anymore. Mm-hmm. So I dig a little deep. Like this is 2 years later, and none of these cats talked to me about it.
Yeah.
But I had folks from the Quill, who obviously I don't agree with ideologically at all. They are vegan straight edge.
Yeah,
I am neither.
I support their opinion to achieve it.
Oh yeah.
I just don't buy into that religion.
No, and I would argue that veganism is a religion.
Oh, yeah. If you think that it somehow elevates you to a higher level of existence than someone who has a stake, it is most definitely a religion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but they had brought to me that a girl that I dated back in 2012 had sent out all of these messages to people in the community talking about how abusive I was, and I was a sexual predator and all this stuff. And as it turns out,
#me too.
Yeah, they tried to Kavanaugh me, So as it turns out, this particular person, whenever we were together, I had to call the cops on. Mm-hmm. They were slashing their arm with a butcher knife. They were abusive.
And then that festered into vindication. Well, imagine that.
And check this out. Here's the kicker. Towards the end of it, they said they were going to kill themselves, leave a note saying how I drove them to it, with the goal that think of all the beautiful music I would make, inspired by them doing that.
She wanted to be Courtney Love.
So check this out.
I'm trying to be Kurt Cobain.
There was a diss track on the last album from someone who's a friend of mine, but it was an ex-lover. Yeah. So my rationale is that they got nothing. Yeah. They didn't get a song, and this other person did. So as a way to, if you think they're bad, I'll show you how bad is bad.
Exactly.
You're never getting a song from me. You're never gonna get one. I'm nobody. You know what I mean? Like I'm a droplet in the ocean of consciousness.
Hey, I listen to Nirvana every day. I haven't Googled Courtney Love in 10 years. Who gives a shit, man?
So, but I mean, point being to the long tangent is that, there were topics on there, and this is me tooting my own horn. This is, again, 2 years later, coming to a logical conclusion that some of these things and some of these rumors that, she wanted to Kavanaugh me with affect people so much that it's so much easier for, and myself included, to think dogmatically or idiomatically than it is to sit back and be like, no, wait a second. So why are all these dots connected? It's a little too coincidental.
Well, the average person that she emails is not going to approach it with judicial process either. They're not going to try to get both sides of the story and then investigate and try to see what really happened. You know what I mean? Yeah. She's completely control the narrative from her end of the spectrum, and you're in control of the narrative from your end of the spectrum.
Precisely. So, the kicker is that that's the old album. I'm done with that shit.
Don't even care.
They're still wound up about it 2 years later.
I mean, I did the same thing on my Facebook. I have people trying to get in constantly, and I can't add new people till I delete other people.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'll post whatever bullshit memes and just whatever shit posting I can do, and people just get their panties in a wad, man, just upset and attacking me on Facebook, messaging me and everything. The next thing I know, they're blocked and they're off my friends list. And what's funny is they think they're winning by doing that, but that's kind of my goal, is to make room for more like-minded people.
Aside from that, you think about it, they went out of their way to remove
type
you.
in my name. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll show that motherfucker.
I heard. I don't know the origin of the quote, but I heard once that bad publicity is still publicity.
Yeah. There is no such thing as bad publicity.
Exactly. But
Oh yeah, especially all the many years of being in a band, going from a secular band to a Christian band back to whatever. It's like,
and with you being straight edge, you have a whole different.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine also people, and please correct me if I'm wrong in my assumption, but people that you would meet that do find displeasure in your art, they almost expect that your art should be made for them.
Right.
He owes them something somehow. Yeah.
And the way I've always viewed my creative pursuits, obviously tattooing's a little different because you have to appease the client themselves.
To a degree.
Right. But like the stuff I make because there's colors and images in my head that are intangible, and I want to make them into something tangible for me. And if people
trying to turn your emotion to a language.
yeah, like I like the music I do because I make it for me. And if other people like it as well, that's awesome. And I think that's the goal you should go for.
That is the goal. You should be happy with what you do, and it should be for you. There was many times where especially being in certain bands, where I wrote music that wasn't for me, and I wasn't a big fan of it. And I can go back and listen to it, like, it's cool that I did it. But
it's like running a rat race. It just gets harder and harder to pick up the pace,
oh, we're doing that tonight. Okay.
There's a really handsome fellow in that video. If I recall.
Did you like my little GIF I made that day? I just videoed you for a second. I loved it.
Oh man, the olive on that, like that stuck to your face. That whole video was
perfect.
priceless. I didn't know I wasn't there for that part when you guys recorded it. I didn't realize it stuck in one shot. Beautiful. Like you can't script that.
I think Will was sitting at the camera.
Will Southern.
I mean, it wasn't exactly you chained up with your hair down or nothing, but it was on point.
I know. I mean,
I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like Nate was just like, "Hey, can you show up at the Blue Pub?"
Hey, can you do some shit? Just be you for a minute, man.
Oh, y'all knew more about the music video than I did. They were just like, "Hey, we're gonna put you in your attic real quick, and we're gonna change it to something." I'm like, "Okay."
We just want this kind of messianic feel. So you just drop your hair.
Should we get consent before you chain me to the attic? No, it's great. It's gonna look fantastic.
It'll be awesome.
We're gonna douse you in water and shame. And, you're just gonna sweat, and you're just gonna just look like you're in pain, and you don't want to be here. It's like, you're absolutely right. I don't want to be here. I don't know what's going on.
And did you actually cook burgers in that video? Or?
I did not. It's actually a second part of my rider that is like, there's a fee if you want me to cook a burger.
$12 a burger, man.
I specifically asked for a bushel of organic bananas here when I arrived.
Did you get elephant meat? If you didn't get elephant meat, I ain't doing it, man.
I'm about to say your rider was way better than mine because I got nothing. I was in the band and part of that for many years, and I still got nothing. Disappointment. That's what I got.
So what's the project you're most recently been working on as far as music goes?
Recently, I've been working on hip hop stuff.
That's where the people rhyme words. I like that.
The old hippity hop. Hippie to the hip hop.
Oh, we're kicking old school?
Oh, you want this?
Let's do this.
I'll freestyle right now.
Well, I heard that he can't satisfy you with his little worm, but I could knock you out with my super sperm. My grandma used to sing that to me as a child.
16 bars ago.
Oh man, but I also do bedroom pop too.
Yeah.
I like you better in pop. I feel like it fits you more.
I'm trying.
I like you've got a very versatile voice, and you like trying different things with it. I enjoy that about you.
But he's actually been doing some pretty incredible beats. I didn't even know he could do all that. I thought he was just a lyricist and a performer, and then lately I'd be like, oh shit, this guy.
I can't play an instrument at all.
Working some out. I can't either.
MIDI makes it to where you don't need that.
Exactly. Like I said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll sit here, click around. That sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Can I sing that now? No, can't do that. So let me bring it down.
I found because me being a one-man band, like, you don't want me playing drums on my own record, otherwise it'll just be like, like nobody will dance to it. It's like, oh, is Ringo Starr making a comeback?
And I've always respected like one-man band like you. Like, I always respected that because I did one hip-hop show with a friend of mine, Jimmy Hennessy. And because we did like a heavy song with him, but I didn't have a band behind me.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing in the world. So I was like, oh, hey, guys.
I'm real bashful. That's my problem. I'm so confident. I'm almost arrogant about it. I'm like, I'll battle you right now. I don't give a shit. Somebody drop a beat real quick. But
I think, and we were kind of talking about this earlier about like all artists being narcissists. It's just that artists have a way to channel narcissism, so it's not hurting other people. You make something instead. You know?
It's kind of like Freud said about the Irish. He said the Irish were impervious to psychoanalysis. I think it's the same thing with artists because we are narcissistic, but we're also self-loathing. Like,
that's
kind of the
favorite and least favorite person alive.
Exactly.
We're talking about hip hop. You know, Aesop Rock. His song "Shrunk." You ever heard that?
I don't think I know that. I like Aesop Rock.
You should definitely check it out. It's an incredible song. But he's basically painting the picture of him going to a therapist and explaining everything. And let's see if I can remember it. She says, I'm not your enemy. He said, that sounds like something that my enemy would say instead of playing off the chemistry. She said, you're being difficult. I said, I'm being guarded because you're $250,000 in debt and I get more guidance from my barber. Okay, you know. But
do you know Aesop Rock has the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest vocabulary in hip hop?
Yep, it's not just hip hop ever. All composed work. Shakespeare was number 535 on the list.
Yeah,
Aesop
all 9 members of Wu-Tang rounded out the top 10.
Exactly. Wu-Tang is, hey, presidents are temporary. Wu-Tang's forever.
Well, they had like a what do you call it? It's a plot point graph or a scatter graph or something. And so it shows like where like a lot of people are that big name MCs. So I mean, you know, Eminem, Jay-Z, Nas, like they're all clustered together. Then you see way out front here, there's another group, and then all the way out beyond that is Aesop Rock. And so like even Wu-Tang is like way ahead of like the rest of the pack.
And then there's Robert Frost and Shakespeare. Which is interesting to see the implications of that, you know?
You heard that new Robert Frost and Jay-Z joint?
You heard that Dr. Seuss, man? Shit's fire, dog. Shit's hitting, man.
All the kids are just hitting the quan. Really rocking the whole time.
We've hit a point in music to where it's just desperate for a revival would be the only word that I could put for it. You know, there are no Bob Dylans anymore. You know, there's no.
Well, was it? You know, back in whenever P2P sharing was first breaking big, and they were like, this is going to ruin the music industry. What it did, it actually gave the music industry more power.
SoundCloud, man, like the fact that anyone now can drop anything. It's not who you know anymore. But, you know, for a long time, there was a whole affiliation with the music culture and MK Ultra.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It was very propaganda-based.
Yeah.
It was only who was allowed to. Goes back to
what we were talking about as far as culture being inherited. It's like, you think the hippie movement was spawned organically?
Exactly. I love there's Hank Sr. fans that don't appreciate NWA. I'm like, how?
It's gangster.
How? The Ryman, he showed a fit, you know? Johnny Cash kicked the lights out, got arrested in Mexico for popping pills, but you don't appreciate Lil Peep? That doesn't make any sense. I've been involved with this huge debate lately with Post Malone and Ozzy Osbourne, that whole thing, and everyone's talking about how all these new kids are like, who's Ozzy Osbourne? Who's this new guy? Whatever. And people are straight up salty about it, instead of appreciating the fact that he just gave exposure to Ozzy Osbourne to an entire new generation. Yeah. People that would never know his name know who Ozzy Osbourne is now because he did an album with him. I say educate yourself on both sides. You know, like you don't have to be Post Malone or Ozzy. You can be music.
I like both of those guys anyway.
Exactly.
I mean, Black Sabbath arguably invented metal.
Facts.
You know,
absolutely.
And while
son of a bitch.
While Post Malone lyrically, he's not exactly breaking new ground.
Exactly.
But his records, as far as how they're engineered, they are beautiful.
Oh yeah,
like they're pristine, dude.
The engineering alone behind everything he does is a masterpiece.
And he's just a good guy.
It tickles the ears.
A generally good dude, man. Like,
he's like one of the coolest dudes.
He's super humble.
Like, I did actually have the pleasure of meeting him in passing.
Did you?
He actually is he's weird. He's a really weird guy, but
aren't we all, man? I like weird though. It'll be all right.
But yeah, Posty's a cool dude.
Mm-hmm. But then you have this entire generation of 18 and 19-year-old kids ODing after 2 albums. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that that's not a spirit that you want to promote in today's culture or to our youth, you know. But at the same time, when they put their life into that music and sacrificed it, now they're eternalized by these albums that they created.
Yeah.
Now, I think they catch a lot of hell because they're not Ozzy Osbourne. But Ozzy Osbourne did the same stuff. He was just tougher. He's a British man. Like, you can't kill Brits, you know what I mean? I think he's British. I'm going to Google that. Fact check. I'm over here winging it.
Young Jamie, will you pull up
Ozzy Osbourne origins? The origins of Ozzy Osbourne?
Well, I'm actually looking this up.
That's what I was saying. We definitely need to get linked up with a computer or something so we can pull little things up and put into our video and stuff.
Ozzy Osbourne, where are you from, man?
Is he British?
Cambridge?
Where's
I think
Cambridge?
he is from
England?
England? So, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing. England bred and...
All the white people. They're all,
Yeah,
they're all the
Yeah, we're
fucking
just going
same.
to do this. It's going to be very basic.
Let's see what we got here.
Where are you from?
He's an English singer.
Oh, no.
Good job there, Colter. One of them fuckers is British. It might be Keith Richards or something.
I think he's British.
Some of
Yeah,
them
he
are
is
British.
English. Aston Birmingham.
You can't fucking kill him, man. He's 71.
Oh, no.
But see, think about that. Ozzy Osbourne's 71, Donald Trump's 73. And how different of people they are.
Slight
you know what I mean?
difference.
But how old is Willie Nelson right now?
They're both reality TV stars, though.
That's my point. Like, but Ozzy would have been I don't know how much good he'd done for the economy. It'd have been a ride for sure.
I'm not sure if you would.
86 years old.
Willie Nelson's 86. Hey, Willie Nelson 2020, man. I'm voting. I'm gonna ride his ass in.
He'd legalize
Oh,
marijuana.
definitely. Like day one. But more than that, he's 86, you say?
86, yeah.
And
Still gigs. Like, he still tours.
that's what I'm saying. He's probably got a ridiculous amount of money, but you catch that man. He's in Winnebago with some cutoffs. You know what I mean? I saw a video the other day on, I think it was his 80th birthday that I saw online. It could have been from years ago, you know, but I just saw it. And he's sitting in an RV with some cutoff shorts and his little braids and bandana, and he's got a metal trash can lid, just rolling dudes, you know? I was like, that's a good guy. Like, what's he hurting, you know? But people don't look at Willie Nelson and think, oh, if he was driving through Adel, Georgia right now and got pulled over, he'd get a possession charge.
Yeah.
They put his ass in jail. Like, what?
Sorry, Willie.
Hey, I know you
Rules is rules.
Hey, we got Willie, Cheech Marin, and Tommy Chong down here for booking. Like, how can you do that to
I
somebody?
told you not to crank call me again.
That's why I respect like Snoop Dogg, man. Like, he became a celebrity based off of his illegal activity, and it wasn't necessarily a more. I mean, he did have the murder charge.
Yeah,
you know.
which he beat.
Murder was the case they gave me, but at the same time, like, he has just formed an entire fan base off of being socially abnormal. He wasn't, as far as his culture goes, he's pretty normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem with America right now. Is we look at culture as sin. We look at culture as something to be eternally condemned for.
I think sometimes we don't even recognize that it's culture, you know? Like, there's...
They don't. We do.
Yeah, true.
We recognize
I think
it.
a lot of times people that get wrapped up in identity politics, like, because they're so focused on the pigeonholing and compartmentalizing the kaleidoscope of humanity, that it's a lot easier to not view it as cultural and view it as some other intrinsic quality. So for instance, like in the South, I would, and of course I don't have any empirical evidence to back this up, but my opinion, I would argue 1 out of every 4 persons is a bigot in the
Yes,
South.
I agree entirely.
And they are vocal.
Don't bring that
about
shit
it.
around here, they'll get wrecked.
Nah, fuck that.
We don't play that noise.
And from all aspects of it, but the other 3/4 of us, none of us give a shit.
Mostly because
Like-
of our generation.
Our previous, our ancestors came up through that, and
Right.
you look at the timeline since the Confederacy, and then it makes sense. Like, well, why did the South become more Republican as time went on? It's because the Democrat oligarchs were the slave owners.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
they were the Jim Crow forebearers, and they were about American Indian genocide and the KKK. So over generations, you had more and more Southerners just rebel against that, because Republican, though I would argue it doesn't have the morals it did in the 19th century, Republican...
What does, though?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
true.
But it also doesn't have the immorality that it had in the 19th century.
Also
So
true.
The capacity,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
balance to it.
But it's it started as an abolitionist party. It was an anti-slavery party.
Protestant of sorts. They
Yeah.
were protesting what was going on at the time.
They were the protesters, the Protestants of America at that time, and Lincoln was the first Republican president.
And now we've had a full circle to now you have children that refuse to go to church because their racist uncles and aunts are there.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane to see that they're protesting the very same thing in the future, you know?
I always would liken that mentality with personal experience that whenever I was younger and had a band in high school and teenage years, we were not a cool band at all.
Lanier County, class of 08 over here.
But I would meet these folks that were in the scene, and they were the older kids, and they were just so cruel and like assholes to like us because we didn't have the cool older brother that had Japanese imports of all of these underground 80s hardcore bands.
It's the elitist mentality.
Yeah,
you know?
so
we're old enough to get tattoos yet, so you don't have any say in this conversation. Like, what?
That seems like a crock of shit.
Exactly.
But I would take and at my own fault at that, but I would see like the bands they would listen to. I'd be like, I don't want to listen to those bands because I would associate the music with them, and it's like they're not the music. The Clash is a good band. It doesn't matter.
I fuck with the Used. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It works. I feel the same about like Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, and everything. My ex used to like lock herself in the bedroom and turn it on super loud. So for years,
get out of my room, Bob.
So for years, for years, I chimed in with the energy people. I'd be like, God dang it, I cut it off. But then eventually, I learned to appreciate it because I let wounds heal. You know what I mean? I overcame the stigma of it. I was like, every time I hear it, it takes me back to that time and place. I think a lot of people do the same thing. Either they were bullied in high school by a certain culture or a certain demographic, and they look at it as, well, I hate everything to do with that.
Yeah.
Collectively.
Yeah, and it's not a wise thing to do. You're not going to grow like that.
Well, I mean, if you look at America, we're definitely a melting pot of a mixture of an incredible amount of culture.
Oh, yeah, we're all bastards of the world.
Exactly, an insane amount of cultures is a melting pot, but at the same time, we're building a wall. What the shit? Now, I catch a lot of hell on Facebook about that because I'm very anti-immigration laws to the extent that there are. You know, I think it should be a lot easier. I think it should be a lot easier to acquire citizenship.
I will agree with you on that.
I also think it should be a lot easier to lose citizenship. I catch a lot of hell. People think that I'm very anti anything the government is doing or whatever. And I'm not. I definitely support certain things that they do. But
I think if you do election meddling, you should be deported.
Exactly. That's I agree with that. I agree with that. I also agree with a lot of things. Like, let's say, here's my theory on it. And is it... Take it with a grain of salt.
I'll try to be
take it with a grain of salt. But I think if you really have a problem with the immigration shit, then we should take Mexico. We should take it. Make drugs legal down there, whatever. Get rid of the power of the cartel. And then that way Mexican citizens have the option for citizenship.
Right.
Mexicans can actually come across the border. And if they want to get a job and be a hard-working American citizen, they're more than welcome to. They can pay their taxes. They can do all their stuff as long as they can pass the processes. I don't think they should have to pass any tests that you couldn't pass. I don't think they should have to pass any tests that old Joe Bumfuck down at the gas station can't pass because most of them don't know the national anthem. Yeah. They can't. They couldn't tell you what amendment is which in the Constitution, and yet they're no, the portal. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense, you know.
Not in my county.
Exactly. But and that would also at the same time produce the opportunity that if you wanted to smoke meth till your eyeballs fell out, cross the border, go down to where the cartel's already ruined and have it. You know.
I think some of these communities like where the El Paso and Juarez City, and Juarez City is like human trafficking cartel.
It's Juarez the dead.
Yeah. So like if that community is put together and they got their wall up, I think that's their because they're on the border. I don't think people in Montana should.
Exactly. They don't have to deal with the same problem.
Yeah. So I mean like most things, they're complex issues. So I agree that it should be easier to become a citizen. I think, interestingly, if you look at what happened during the Obama years, and I'm not a fan of Obama, but it was harder for people to become a citizen, and yet made it easier to get into the country. So to me, that's a little backwards because it should make it to where, all right, if you want to come here, not work here, but become a citizen, your path should be easier. But you should be coming in through the proper channel.
It shouldn't just be possible, it should be probable. It should be something that is easily done. And I do agree with you that the illegal immigration is not... It's not beneficial.
We've seen with human trafficking involved with it, that is my biggest qualm with it. It has nothing to do with because again, I'm not an economist, so it's not my ideas on.
They're sending all the money back home.
Yeah.
Got all the money to go.
But it's, we've noticed, especially with all this Epstein stuff,
Facts.
it turns out that some of the crazy stuff our illustrious orange bastard in the White House was talking about turns out to have some validity to it. And
he's not just riddled with dementia.
but wait, there's more.
The more you know. But yeah, man, like I know a lot of immigrants. I tattoo a lot of immigrants. Tito Zambrano, he's
Panamanian.
He's Panamanian, just on Ink Master. I watched him come over here from a job. He did my first tattoo when I was 18 years old. Watched him go from a plastic factory to being on national television, winning awards for tattooing, which is insane that we've even made it that far in our culture. In the 60s, this was the bastard child of
only
artistic
scumbags
expression.
got into it.
Exactly, and it's interesting to watch an immigrant do all that, but at the same time, I also see the problems that he's faced with going back to Panama, like bringing family over, doing all the things that he wishes he could do, but he can't because of the rigidity of our system, And at the same time, we're giving $30,000-$40,000 grants to people to open gas stations from other countries. It's just an imbalance. I feel like it's only because it's actually where we share a border that it is such a principle. But you don't hear about that with Canada.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with Canadian immigrants coming down and doing everything, But it's interesting to see that Canada has to do it the opposite way. Canada has they won't allow you to come across the border if you have DUIs.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how strict their border is, and then also the level of peace that they have.
I think you had told me a story, like a tour you guys had done to like Manitoba, and like another band was like, "Oh, sorry, they detained you."
We got detained in Ontario, like the second go around, not the first go around. And it's funny because the first go around, they're like, "Okay, everything looks cool. What are you guys in the country for?" It's like, "Oh, we're just checking things out because."
Being sketchy.
That tour was sketchy from the get-go.
It's just 6 dudes in a van. It's not a big deal.
Nope. Exactly. 6 dudes in a van. Actually, ended up being 12 people in that van. Went from Ontario, Canada, all the way.
He did. It's such a stereotype for Mexican immigrants. Also, there's 12 people in this van. Get them the fuck out of here. They're coming to take our jobs. Get them out. Get them out.
That tour was a fucking nightmare, anyways. There's 12 of us. 6 of them Canadian, and they're cool dudes, but they're not the smallest people in the world. And you've been in tour vans before. You
little tight.
It's a slum.
It's tight enough when
it's a mobile slum.
Exactly. It's tight enough when it's just the 4 or 5 of you. But when you got 12 just large men, sweaty.
Yo, you got to pull over. I'm gonna shit in this Gatorade bottle, cuz I'm sorry. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Just the beginning of that tour was a sketchy from the get-go because the guy that booked the whole tour was like, "Just get to the border. We got you. Don't worry.
Trust me.
Just don't."
I'm a voice on the phone. Believe in me.
I've never seen this guy. I've never met this guy before in my life. He just hit our bass player up. Clark up.
So it's like Tinder, but for bands.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, "Hey,
I know a guy in Canada. Come on.
Swipe right."
It's like, "Hey, you guys want to come over? I know you've never seen me, but I'm about to cash fish the fuck. God, can we talk cash fish the fuck out of you?" Wow, that was a struggle. Anyway,
I thought you said castrate. So it's like, that's a terrible fucking.
There's probably a Tinder for that as well.
I hope so.
Massive Kinder Tinder.
BME Pain Olympics, I think is what it's called.
But we get in there, we meet the guys at the border. They're like, "Don't say anything to customs, just say you're traveling, you're visiting." So okay, that already sounds sketchy. So we get in and we assume this guy has the paperwork for us. No, this kid has just barely even booked this tour. And
I got like 12 dudes in the van coming. From the park over there.
No one told me that it was illegal to make Canadian money as a USA band.
Y'all got an IRS too? That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy hell.
I thought we were going through them, but no, we were getting the money.
You know where Ricky and Julian and Bubbles live? I'm just trying to...
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is 2014, way before... Wait, was it? Trailer Park Boys.
No, they were already.
Yeah, they were just low level.
Gotcha.
They hadn't made it like swear.
They weren't a part of the mainstream culture yet.
Exactly.
Culture.
Now they got their own TV show, SwearNet. They made their own TV show where everything swears. They're doing news broadcasters are swearing. Everybody, like it doesn't matter what it is. Football announcers, all that shit are just cussing up a storm and talking shit. You know, but Canada seems fun.
It's fun. No, it's great. It's beautiful. But not when you have a sketchy promoter. All the shows fall through. Your van blows two heads. Not the head gasket. We cracked 2 heads.
Oh, wow.
Going through the mountains. I don't know. I guess the Rocky Mountains on that end.
You ran over someone's head?
Yeah.
Shit.
We ran over
2 people's heads.
We only got arrested in Guelph for getting in a fight. Like, okay, funny
Was it a
story.
justified fight, or was it you had to pick somebody else's
He could
trash
still
up
be in
for you?
Canadian jail.
You know how Canadians are supposed to be nice and just like...
I don't believe stereotypes about
Yeah,
that.
Okay.
man. I just want to say a boot or whatever.
First of all, that stereotype is bullshit. We are not nice people.
It's cold.
It's cold, exactly.
fucking cold.
And it was still snowing. It was May, June. It was still like frozen. I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? But we were at this small middle of nowhere venue in Guelph, Ontario. I don't even know. It's like below Sudbury. And these 2 drunk guys just walk up, minding their own business, by the way. As nice as they can be, but just drunk. The Canadian band's like starts fucking with their food that they have in their hands. Like, oh, dude, what do you got? Just being stupid kids. And the guys were like, hey, don't do that. Seriously. And then it's like opening their food, picking shit out of it, and then got, all right, you got one more time to go through my shit, or I'm going to knock you out. And I heard that. So all of a sudden, okay.
It's the end of round 1.
Round 1. So I heard that. I'm like, oh, shit's about to go down. So I just start edging my way over there. Dude's like, all right, I got you. Dropped his food and tried to like wreck the Canadian kids. I'm like, okay, cool.
Here we go.
And I stuck him like 2 or 3 times after that, and all of a sudden, everybody just jumps on top of these 2 guys. These poor dudes that were just minding their own fucking business. And
I just imagine you as like Letterkenny, like pitter patter.
pitter patter. It kind of was. What made this fight even better? Someone pushed me out of the way. I was like trying to find somebody to fight. One guy almost snubbed me, but Giovanni is in the van, pokes his head out, sees what's going on. I'm talking about just books it. I didn't see him coming, and just rocks this dude. I'm talking about locked up, hit the ground, cops come, and 2 dudes are laying on the ground. They're like, what the fuck went on here? And one guy came to, grabbed the cop, and was like, he killed him! He killed my friend! Just started shaking the cop. The cop just grabbed him, threw him on the ground.
Our healthcare system is phenomenal. He'll be fine.
Exactly. And he looks at us, these guys who were unscathed in this fight, and it's like, y'all have a great night. And then the other dude is running down the alley, and like 4 cops chasing him down, just tackling his ass. So that's how we got out of that.
They probably had a run-in with those guys before, you know?
Probably.
These are the locals.
What?
Leave the Americans alone. They're helping out the economy.
What possesses you to grab a cop and be like, he killed him?
He killed him.
And just, that poor dude.
Poor fella.
But
I've never heard any horror stories about Canadian jails, though, so, I mean...
I don't know. We just got detained. We didn't get arrested. They kept us at custom for like 24 hours on the way back because we had like a whole nother week of tour after all this shit went down. We went through the U.S. We had a few shows in Illinois and Montana, I think. And then we tried to go back in the same way we came. They're like, how the fuck did y'all get in the first time? You have $5,000 in Canadian currency that is unaccounted for. It's like, how did you... It's like, you guys...
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Just convert it or something. What do you mean?
Oh, this gets even better.
This is pre-cash apps.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, we're about to go to Canadian jail. Was a convicted felon.
All the names have been changed to protect the privacy of
We
people
can
involved.
beep it out. We can beep it out.
We just put like Samuel L. Jackson. Just dub it over.
I just realized I should say first and last name. But
This is a true story. Only the names, dates, places, and facts were changed.
Let's call him John S. No, wait. J. Smith.
J. Smith. Yeah.
J.F. Kennedy. Good old J.F. Kennedy over here.
J.F. Kennedy. I realize I'm rambling. This is getting long.
All right.
That doesn't matter.
That's the point. This is the point.
But is a convicted felon for...
Yikes.
So
Drug stuff.
drug stuff, yeah. So
Probably that confusing spice we were talking about.
So they're talking about like, you guys can get locked up right now, but we're gonna do y'all a solid. You're gonna turn in your money and you're gonna get the fuck out of this country, and you're not allowed to come back in for a very long time.
Fair trade.
Fair trade.
And I'm like, I will gladly take that offer. You Canadians can go fuck yourself. No, I'm just kidding. They were actually really cool. By the end of it all, there was like 2 guys that were really cool.
Had a
And we're like,
very similar run-in with the Louisiana
oh yeah.
Baton Rouge Police Department. A very similar
Said you had
situation.
fun with that one.
Yeah. They told me to get my ass back to Georgia. I was like, yes, sir. Let me load up all this shit real quick and I'll get out of here.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. We packed up our shit. We said goodbye to the people. We
Traded your profit for peace.
Oh yeah, and
They probably pocketed it too. They probably was like, give me this $5,000. We'll split it between the 3 of us.
Probably. Well, I mean, if it's not declared, then why
Yeah.
would they declare it?
yeah. So we got fucked out of $5,000,
I do declare.
and that's pretty much it. We went to our last show. Somehow we stayed a week in Ohio. We found this fucking Chick-fil-A of all places. Was just like we're calling because
The grace of God.
By the grace of God.
Showed himself. You think it wasn't fucking Sunday?
Oh yeah. So we're like, we're just calling around because that's what you did back in the day. You would call Chipotle's, Chick-fil-A's, and try to get free food, and they would sponsor meals every once in a while.
There's 12 of us in a van. We're starving. Please help
Well,
us out.
the Canadians are gone, so it's just us. It's 5 of us at this point. 6 of us, sorry. And then we call this Chick-fil-A. Everyone has turned us down. Chipotle's like, fuck you. We don't want to sponsor you bum-ass losers.
You get no burrito bowls.
But we call Chick-fil-A, and they're like, oh, this is the band, right? Like, hold on. What's the name of your band? We're like, Beware the Never Ending. They're like, wait a minute. And then he starts playing his iPad or his iPhone.
That's what's up.
And he was like, dude, I know who you guys are. Like, come on in. We got you. It's like, you guys need a place to stay. Like, over the phone, this guy was so freaking nice.
Sometimes you gotta be a Christian. Man.
Exactly. Well, we were a Christian band.
Oh, no. That's what
So this
Let me
guy-
pray on it real quick.
This
I'll
guy
call you
has
back.
a whole setup. There's like chicken sandwiches, chicken nuggets. There's like little stuffed animals on the
I just imagine like the Last Supper with those Chick-fil-A employees.
Imagine that. That's exactly what it was. And I was sitting at the table.
There's some fucking spy from McDonald's kissing him on the cheek. Trying to get that fucking silver, you know?
You can see just the tiniest golden arches right there on the breast of his lapel.
It's a Macutus.
And that's pretty much how that tour ended.
Yeah.
The spot from McDonald's ratted us out, and I was sitting there. It's like, one of you are going to betray us tonight.
All I heard is God provides.
God provides, yeah.
That's all I heard. Canada's pretty chill, and Chick-fil-A is pretty what's
I'm
up.
about to say, through all that bullshit we
Where
had
the
to
fuck
go
was this Chick-fil-A at?
Toledo, Ohio.
What the fuck?
It's the holiest city in Ohio.
In Toledo. No, Toledo
I didn't even
is
know
garbage,
Toledo.
though.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. I didn't know there's anything good about Toledo.
Oh yeah, it's just like, hold on, here's Toledo and then here's Detroit. Like, or not Detroit, was that over? No, I'm at 2 different places.
Those are different time zones, I'm pretty
Cleveland?
sure.
Isn't Toledo near Cleveland?
I don't know, we were
Yeah,
hour
Toledo,
away.
Illinois.
Wherever we were, it was like an hour away from the Canadian border.
It's really about Old
Toledo.
Hampshire or whatever.
But it was like night and day. You were, wherever we were, it's garbage. The U.S. side is like black, cloudy. You get over to the Canadian border, it's like, oh, bright sunny skies. It's like, wow, what the fuck just happened here?
What month was it?
May.
Hey, okay, that makes sense. I feel like most of the time Canada's just like, don't go outside too long, you'll freeze. Your hand might fall off if you go to the mailbox, you know?
Never been.
I've never have either, that's just how I imagine it. Just like this frozen tundra full of, it's like,
As soon as you hit the border.
it's like Siberia. There's fucking tigers and it's like a little Chernobyl or something. Just smoking in the distance.
It is weird, like layout of certain areas. Like I lived in New Jersey for close to 4 years or so.
Oh, Jers.
Near Philly, not near the city, New York or anything. South Jersey is really weird because there's a bit of Southern culture there. Like America's first rodeo exists.
Yeah.
It's
In
called
New Jersey?
In New Jersey, it's called
is
Cowtown.
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 I know exactly
Hell
what you're
yeah.
talking about. And it's weird because it's like...
They could have named Peaches Cowtown. It would have got the same effect, you know what I mean?
Imagine like all the little cities that you grew up around here seeing, like having a little general store and everything. That's like South Jersey.
Little five mom and
the
pop
places
stuff
I've
there.
been through.
Well, my buddy's up in upstate New York, and it looks like here. Like, you'll see me pictures.
I've heard that about
it's just
upstate New York,
forest and beautiful stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
There's no mosquitoes.
No,
but-
all the yuppies are just centralized in Manhattan and Long Island.
It's like, how many more people can we fit?
They had like in Jersey, it would have say you're at like a four-way stop in a city, you know,
In a city.
in a city.
My city.
So there would be some times where across the street is a city limit, and on that block is another city limit. And it's
Okay.
like, well, we're not out of the city yet.
Okay.
But what they did, they set up all these zones, decades and decades prior, and didn't plan on the state to boom
Okay,
like
that
it
makes
did, because
sense.
it was like a tourist spot.
Yeah.
And then, Atlantic City blows up, and then it just sort of sprawls out. So now,
whole
like,
hip hop started popping.
yeah, and hardcore movements started coming up from Jersey Shore. Not like the show Jersey Shore,
Yeah.
What a situation.
but what was it? FSU? Was it Friends Stand United or Fuck Shit Up? It was
Yeah.
this old hardcore movement from the Jersey
All
Shore.
the crews like Courage from Ohio. You got FSU, whatever all those other BDMS, whatever the crew names were.
BBC.
I realize it's disrespectful.
Greatest name for a network ever, by the way.
It is.
Thanks for choosing BBC.
But yeah, all the crew movements and especially the hardcore scene grew from like all the bigger cities, and I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah.
We're talking Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey is weird though, man, because if you can find it on the East Coast, ecologically, geographically, or socially, it exists in New Jersey.
Okay.
So like they've got mountains, they've got swamps, they've got beaches, they've got rednecks,
You got hipsters.
they got a lot of hipsters.
You got a handful of straight edge. Does Jersey have the same kind of like Boston beatdown straight edge culture?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Especially like in the Trenton area.
Okay.
It's hardcore scene's amazing there. I miss it. Like, I wish we had that kind of
Passion down
yeah,
here.
like, but that's the difference between Southern passion and
Battle rap's the same way. I mean, I know I'm speaking from my area of expertise here, but the battle rap in New Jersey is pretty incredible compared to down here. Like, there's not even leagues. We can't go and watch a battle rap performance right now. There's no venues or anything. But as soon as you cross the Mason-Dixon,
I think that is part of it, just because of how lackadaisical like Southern culture is, where it's like, hey man, we're just trying to chill.
I'm just trying to grow some cotton and sit on this porch swing. Just drink my sweet tea and damn smoke my Winston, you know? Get out the damn garden there.
Had a fella from the bank came to the house the other day. It was pleasant. Talked for a while, had some lemonade. It was good.
You got papers? That's supposed to shoot whoever's got papers.
Now there's a good boy. Is your daddy about?
You work for the bank?
5% I'm gonna shoot whoever
You work
comes
for
from
the bank.
One thing I do like about that movie in particular is the Southern accents, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do a really good job with it.
It's also Homer's The Iliad.
Yeah.
Odyssey.
Yeah, Odyssey, yeah.
If you,
if you'll notice, because there's such a prejudice against Southern culture and Southern people.
the Southern accent normally, like, it has this. It just airs ignorance. You know what I mean? Like, people just automatically, just because you talk like this, now he's dumb as fuck. That man has no accountability.
I think we're somewhat arguably programmed that way, and my rationale for thinking that is that if you're in the media and we'll say news media, right, and you want somebody to sound dumb, what kind of voice do you give them?
Larry the Cable Guy, man.
You give him a Southern accent.
oh yeah.
So
You know, he's actually from New York.
yeah. He doesn't talk like that.
Fake accent. Man.
So
Sorry, Larry. Put you on blast, bro.
busted, Larry. But
Hashtag me too.
But if you want somebody to sound intelligent, you give them a British accent. So if you look at media through the 20th century, they used to do the same thing visually. They don't do it visually anymore. So if you look at old Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Popeye cartoons.
Reefer Madness.
Yeah, like so stuff like this. If somebody was, say, Pacific Islander or Asian or black, you would do a caricature of them, and then people got hip to that. Were like, "Yo, that's fucking cruel." Like,
that exaggerated emphasis on certain implications of their character.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you'll notice, somewhere around mid 20th century, that sort of died out. But what didn't die out is the auditory part of it. So
that stigma.
yeah. So if the Southern voice, if you can't do that, the second choice of accent is a hood accent.
Look at T.I. That man has a phenomenal vocabulary. Like, he is a very intelligent human being, but people automatically, like, half the people that I know from a generation above us down here, if T.I. walked into their store, they would immediately start following him around. Yeah. They'd immediately look at him like, okay, he's a fucking criminal. Dude,
Hurry up and buy.
Yeah. Can I help you? Can I help you? But he could buy 10 of those stores and burn them down and not even notice, you know what I mean? And could probably debate them on most world issues and actually do a better job than they could. But it's just it works both ways, you know, like to look at the Southern accent as ignorance, or then for the Southern accent to look at the Hood accent as ignorance. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, it's programming that people that are neither have been giving down. So
I think it boils down to what you put your money into. Like, you're talking about New Jersey and then the South, you know, and you're talking about how it's just the laziness or the lackadaisical attitude of the Southern culture. I think it's more what they invest their money into. Because if you look at Southerners, like, it's either agriculture or construction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no desire to invent, no desire to push the bar, to bring in a new wave, and most of them are so rooted in their roots that they fear change. They fear if a vape store opens in their town, because now, God dang, all the little youngins gonna have vapes. It's like, no, just fucking keep your kids from vaping, you know what I mean? Like, they're your kids.
Yeah, talk to your children.
Yeah, fucking, what did Shady say?
What's that?
Slim Shady said, I'm here to save this new generation of babies from parents who failed to raise them because they're lazy.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Is that ties back into lackadaisical nature, you know, is that they do just kind of ignore these cultural changes because they don't want to change.
Yeah.
They want to listen to the same things. They like, turn on a country radio station right now. It's the same fucking thing. Every song has the same beat, the same tempo, the same situation. Then you look at SoundCloud rappers and it's different. Like we're talking about Post Malone, you know, like he's so much different than every other rapper out there right now. And that's, where's he from?
Texas?
That's odd.
He's from Texas.
That's so awesome.
Keep going, guys. Don't mind me.
Does Colter understand that?
No, actually not. And I was actually about to get into that.
He's recently gone through a terrible relationship in Texas. It's came to a head and had a pretty bad thing. So he's like, hey, you want to go to Texas Roadhouse? He's like, Texas?
Anytime, like, there's like anything Texas related, it's like, would you like some Texas food?
or like her name. Like someone will call me like, hey, this is so and so for Samson. He'll be like, it's entirely dramatized, you know, but it's so fucking funny to me. He gets me every time.
I mean, you gotta find humor in every life's tragedy.
Yeah, like if you have to create your own happiness because life doesn't owe us shit.
Exactly.
Like nothing.
No one owes you nothing.
No.
What did Jack Nicholson say in The Departed? No one gives you anything, you have to take it.
Yeah.
You have to take it.
And that includes your laughter as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
I personally have found humor as a defense mechanism works a lot better than ego-driven violence works as a defense mechanism.
Yes.
Or self-destructive tendencies.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, especially whenever, like, you're kind of self-loathsome anyway.
Exactly.
Like,
when that's a natural, like, you have to actually fight your mind to keep from destroying yourself. Like, you can't feed into that. Like, it'll grow. I like that in Scripture it says that there was a serpent in the Garden of Eden, but then in Revelation it says a dragon because they've been feeding them.
Yeah.
We feed those negative spirits until they're so big we have to fight them, you know? And I think it's interesting to watch people that, well, I ain't never gonna do it, compared to someone who's failing 15 times. Like, no, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, we're gonna make it happen, you know. But what I was saying about Post is you don't expect him to be from Texas. You know what I mean? You don't look at him and say, oh, this is style. Like, if I put on a Post Malone song right now, no one would be like, fucking Lone Star State. Hell yeah, man, fucking I'm for it, you know. But when you look at entertainment as a whole like that, like, it comes from where you don't expect it to. Like, no one expected Jim Morrison to rise to the level that he did, or to get the attention that he did when he's talking about fucking his mom on stage. You know what I mean?
Did you ever see where, speaking of Jim Morrison, where his dad was
The CIA.
Yeah.
MK Ultra, man.
Yeah,
Ties
yeah.
back into it.
Yeah,
So I
so
just lied to you both. He's from New York, Syracuse. Born
You
in
just
Syracuse.
fucked up my entire
who
fucking...
Post
Wow.
Malone is.
Yeah, I just dropped the ball.
Well, so much for the podcast. Let's shut it down.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
You're so stuck on Texas, you don't even know where the fuck he's from.
I think the whole point of segueing into Texas was
It still worked.
the whole Southern accent thing is like the ignorance behind it. Like me being from Georgia, all of us being from Georgia, they think we're fucking ignorant as shit because our accents are different.
Yeah.
They're like, hey man, talk real quick. I'm like, you sound as ignorant as I do. What's the difference? You're like, nah man, we talk like this.
We got a damn PBR and a damn straw hat, and
We
you
got
got...
PBR.
Y'all say your letter E's different.
I don't like it.
Over yonder. Can I get you something from over yonder? Nah, man, it's over yonder. Difference, man.
In Jersey, they would say John a lot. Like, yo, hand me that John over there.
John.
Oh, which John? This John? Nah,
What the fuck
that
is it?
John.
What's a John?
A John is a nondescriptive noun.
Okay.
J-A-W-N.
So like we say shits.
Yeah.
Hey, you got shits over there?
Yeah.
You see that shit going on there? That shit right
Yeah,
there?
they call it John.
Oh, John. Oh, John.
A fucking thing over there.
Yeah, that fucking
I'm
John.
fucking walking in. Fucking walking in. This John just laying in the street.
Fucking John's right here.
I went to Manhattan once, and I was coming out of the Guggenheim Museum.
Guggenheim.
Guggenheim.
I
Museum.
like it.
I got to see. It was awesome. I got to see a lot of impressionist and post-impression and expressionist artists. So I got to see like Van Gogh,
That's
Cezanne, Manet, Monet, even some Picasso was in there.
Any
So-
Goya? Any Dali?
there was a Goya, no
Okay,
Dali.
okay.
But yeah, it was.
Fucking love Goya, man. That man's insane.
Yeah.
That man was insane.
But I had come out and I was waiting. Like my friend was still inside. And she had like what do you call it? When you go to art museum, they'll give you like headphones in case you don't like know like about the artist. But like oh the painting 4-7B.
See, I never
Girl
took the
takes
time.
bath.
I never took the time to actually put the headphones on for that. Is it even worth it?
I don't know because I didn't know.
No thank you. No thank you.
So like yeah, I'm like outside just like wow, like reveling in like seeing these things that like my mom had showed me in like books growing up as a little
Your
boy.
mom taught me art in
She taught me
fucking
art,
middle
too.
school, even.
Yeah.
She
But-
gave me bad grades sometimes, but whatever.
she likewise.
She got real mad about my vase that I made once. It had a carb on it. So yeah, you're gonna have to break that. I was like, I worked real hard on it.
Well, what do you mean? It's just for the air to move
It's just so I can pour water in the bottom for the flowers. And when I put my trees, I mean flowers in.
Perfect. But fuck, I forgot what I was talking about.
Talking about Guggenheimans.
Oh, the Guggenheim. Yeah.
them old Guggenheimans or whatever.
You kids want some Guggenheims? Nah, I don't need them joints.
No, I still got my Hyman. You can Google somewhere else, bud.
Google Hyman. Oh, that's foul. No,
Don't Google Hyman. No one Google Hyman.
But I'm standing out there and there's this guy. He's got like a stroller with his kid, and he's there with his wife. There, standing on the sidewalk, looking up, just wow, look at this. And this guy with his family walks through, and he sort of like nudges the guy as he walks by. And the guy, with the stroller, lets go and turns around. And the other guy turned around even quicker. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is that your sidewalk? Sorry, it's his sidewalk. Everybody.
Everyone, look, this guy wants the fucking sidewalk.
Sorry, I'll move out of your way next time." I'm like from me to Bobby, like far away. I'm like,
Meanwhile, in Georgia, it's like, oh, hey there, bud.
terribly sorry.
Just waving at people you don't know going on the highway.
I never got that.
It's always fun to get behind like a truck that's doing that, and you see like how many times he'll just like throw up like a wave.
My cousin does this shit. I'm gonna do it on camera. He goes. Every fucking time. I'm talking about 16 cars in a row. I'm just like, fucking stop, man. Like, no one wants to wave at you. This is bullshit.
Somebody does.
Somebody loves me out there.
Yeah, I never got why everybody waves down here because
Hospitality, man. That's why Southern hospitality is so famous.
That's why they hate us. That's why they call us all dumb because of our accents.
that's true.
As long as you don't look a little different, you're cool with us.
Or we were talking about before, like bastard sons of pirates and lumberjacks.
Exactly.
Like we're like rolling through Taco Bell. It's just like, oh oh God, what are these people thinking? What's going on in this vehicle?
Oh
And
God.
most of us are damn hybridized to the point that it doesn't make any fucking sense either. So what? I'm a Scots-Irish Native American fucking Cajun man.
Ah,
It's like,
a
what?
bastard.
Yes, you're a mudblood, as they called him, J.K. Rowlands or whatever her name is.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking Harry Potter.
Oh, okay. I don't know why that did not click in.
Because I said her name wrong, I believe. I get J.K. and T.K.
She's
Okay,
JK.
cool.
Yeah,
She's
was,
JK.
and then Tolkien is the one. Well, J.K. Tolkien, fucking Harry Lord of the Rings or whatever.
You're a wizard, Frodo.
I was talking about the Backdoor Sluts 9 episode of South Park earlier today, so that's so fucking funny.
So good. Absolutely love. I'm glad that show has aged really well and has not gotten wrapped up in the SJW culture.
Yeah, well, they're trying to. They're catching all that hell for the transgender athletes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
LGBT community posted this whole thing that's like, South Park really crossed the line. We can't believe they said that. You can't believe they said that? Have you seen any episode of
Like
South Park
one.
ever?
Have you seen
They
one?
attack everyone. They're not just hate-centered toward gays.
No.
They hate everyone.
Well, I mean, that's the part of their philosophy of humor, which to me resounds very well, which is
Pull no
you make-
punches.
If you make fun of one thing, you have to be able to make fun of everything, because the instance that you come in and say you can't make fun of this, then that means everything else you made fun of is now malicious.
Exactly.
And that's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
what humor is. Like,
You're molesting comedy at that point.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like me, like I'll make fun of myself and be the butt of the joke. I got no problem with it. Even if I don't find it funny, it's fine.
That's me.
But I'm gonna make fun of everything else.
No judgment, just commentary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want you to succeed, but not succeed. But I'm gonna talk some shit.
I never sucked many seeds
I
before.
ain't trying to suck some seed, man. Seedless fruit over there, happy vasectomy. But shit, like, you have to be able to find comfort in all of it. And I think that's part of what everyone doesn't like about Donald Trump is he can't take a joke.
Yeah.
He can't handle.
Well, I think a part of it's also, it's like, the dude will speak for like 2 hours, and then
You're not much.
yeah, not a whole lot, but he goes off the script, and when he does, that's the most entertaining part.
It's fun.
It's like, I don't want to talk about this. You guys don't mind if I ignore the teleprompter, do you? It's like,
Yay! You're fired.
but like they'll show like a 30-second clip, and it's almost always this orange man bad mentality. It's like, can you believe he said that? It's like, well, yeah. I mean, did you see all the other nasty shit he said? Like, I'm not a big fan of his rhetoric, but I like that he's politically incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta it's objective. You gotta take the good with the bad with it. He's definitely not nearly as eloquent as our previous president, and I honestly don't think we'll find someone who was for quite a while.
He had to be.
Yeah.
He couldn't just pop in like, pop, son. Like, he'd have caused some hell.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you think about it, Donald Trump was born in 46, and Martin Luther King was assassinated in 68. So he was alive for that.
Yeah.
Like, he saw segregation. Like,
Well, plus he was always like this unsung hero in lesser communities.
for sure.
And until you went
Politics.
Up, got into politics.
Well, TV actually was probably the first one. Like, that's when people first started being like, okay, I don't like his personality. But I just think it's crazy to think that, like, Martin Luther King, Anne Frank, and Barbara Walters had the same birthday. You know what I mean? They all three existed. Barbara Walters still alive. Donald Trump was a teenager, 12 years old, when
46 to
68.
He's 22.
22, yeah. 22 years old when Martin Luther King was assassinated. Like, could you imagine having that level of comprehension, being 21 and seeing that? That's crazy to me. That's like Dali. Dali died in 89.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, to think about everything that inspired his art, you have to put yourself in that headspace and think, like, well, there was still fucking segregation. There was still pretty drastic civil rights movements going on. Like, we were talking about the hip-hop culture earlier. The LA riots weren't until...
91, 92.
How old was Donald Trump in 91? He's 1946, so 54.
Yeah.
He's 54 years old when NWA started popping. Like, what the fuck? Like, he should have a pretty vast knowledge of it. But when you're that age, you're gonna have that same, like, tie into your roots. You're going to be so rooted in what you know that it's going to be hard to step out.
But it's very difficult to step out of your own box the older you get, you know. But when you're younger, it's easier, I think, to do it. Maybe this will be a good launching point for red pill discussions. But I think it's easier when you're younger because you're looking for something to rebel against in order to find autonomy, right? So I think we have this sort of notion that, like, once you sort of rebel against an institution and find your voice, that you're set. And I don't think that you should ever think that you're set with learning at all.
Facts. Or that you have a comprehensive knowledge of everything. Well, there's no way for you to have a comprehensive understanding of every situation. It has to be presented to you, and then you form an opinion based off of morality or necessity. You know, like, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral, and just because it's necessary doesn't mean it's legal or moral.
Yeah, precisely. Our country was founded because only 1/4 of the people living here centuries ago said, we don't want to follow your laws.
Exactly. Fuck you, come get it.
Yeah.
Here's your tea bag, bitches.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a quarter of people living in the Americas took on the biggest military power in the world.
Facts.
And won. And I think ingrained within our cultural unconscious mind, we still remember like that, you know, that this authoritative rule came in, and we weren't about to have it.
We never shook the curse off. You know what I mean?
Well, I think we've done some good things. I mean, granted, America's done some evil things. Every country has.
Yeah. Everybody has.
No doubt. I'm just as flawed as anybody else.
How can you do true good without experiencing true evil?
You can't.
It's impossible.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we
Hitler was an intelligent man. He was an insane human being. He was an intelligent man, and I argue this with a lot of people. The amount of faith that he had to have to go from a death row inmate to an emperor. You know what I mean? That's insane. Yeah. Do I respect him? Not at all. I don't like anything. It's a very Darwinistic approach to life. He was favored races, you know, but at the same time, like, if you look at the things that he could have accomplished, like, he was capable of incredible things. He just chose to do the opposite.
Well, it started off initially, he got rid of the banking cartels. And
that's what people are trying to do now, you know, in America.
Well, it made it so the top 1% was now 99% of the population after he kicked out the banking cartel. So every German became wealthy.
Imagine that in America right now. If all the bank's wealth was dispersed amongst the citizens. It's insane. It's insane. Can't even comprehend it.
The problem that happened, aside from him probably taking meth and murdering people, was the imperialistic approach, where
I've never noticed the correlation between methamphetamine usage and supremacy mentality.
It's so weird, right?
It is odd. Every method I know is a supremacist.
It's true.
But
this is true.
I think if we look at some of the things, like America in particular, we've been setting the moral pace for the world for the past couple centuries. So we have rooted out two, I would say, of the most poisonous ideologies, which is supremacy, either by ethnic or racial means, and people as property. Now, I think the problem is that
the intrinsic value of a human being.
But the problem we've had in the modern scope is we have pushed these two ideologies into one and thought that, like, okay, people as property is the same as racial supremacy, and it's not.
No.
It's not. If you look at Libya right now, where after we went in and got rid of their dictator Gaddafi, but what happened is the barbarian horde filled that vacuum, and now Libya is the slave nation of the world, where that's where slave trades happen on YouTube.
I mean, even in America, they did it with, like, Chicago. Yeah. They made it where, okay, we've abolished the racism, but y'all go ahead and fight over it.
Yeah. Oh, no. You guys just live in this neighborhood.
Here's some cracking guns and some projects.
Yeah.
You got it. But
that's like Lyndon Johnson talked about. He wanted to have black Americans, he didn't use that word,
terminology,
voting Democrat for 200 years. And that was one of the goals of the federal welfare state. And when you look at the long-term ripple effects of that, like there's certain dots you can't really disconnect. You know
Oh
what
yeah,
I mean?
for sure. But if you're going to look at that end of it, you have to also look at the end of it where, as an American, Kanye West, like in one of his songs, he's, "I'm a different type of leader. I could be in North Korea. I could smoke a Wiz Khalifa."
Yeah.
That's incredible. That he's in the White House shaking hands with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's in North Korea hanging out with Kim Jong Un. He's in California smoking weed with Wiz Khalifa. Like to see that the right of a black man's passage has made it to the point where you can literally be in different world leaders while doing the very thing that people are being incarcerated for in other places. That's wild to me.
Yeah, did you see any of his Jesus is King interview?
Well, yeah, and here's my problem with that. He dropped Jesus Walks 10 years ago.
Yeah.
A decade ago, he was still promoting Christian faith. And I think that we just look at things as so open and shut. Like, he wasn't a Christian for all these years because he hung out with Jay-Z and talked about booty music. But then now he's a Christian again because he's talking about Jesus again. So what? He made Jesus Walks 10 years ago, and countless of my friends from the hood and everything would sing it like gospel.
Yeah.
It was literally ingrained into their faith, you know. And then to think that just now all of a sudden he can't be respected because his wife had a sex tape, that doesn't make any sense to me. But as far as a Southern Baptist mentality goes, he fell out of the grace of God. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It blows my fucking mind. But he's achieved like an incredible amount of things. Jay-Z is on the Forbes list, you know what I mean? He's incredibly rich. Dr. Dre sold Beats by Dre to Apple for billions.
First billionaire.
Exactly.
From hip hop.
It's insane to think about the American culture promoting to that degree. But at the same time, you can't play it too loud in the street or you'll get a ticket. You might offend little Miss Bertha down there from United Methodist Church, and you can't have all that.
And she doesn't like those foul words.
No, she's like 73 and got dementia.
Well, it's like the same way. Well, it's the same mentality with like whenever metal came into mainstream consciousness, and then you start having religious metal acts come in, and that contradict the notion of this is what the music is designed to do. It's like,
or Johnny Cash singing "I'll Fly Away," and then the very next song is talking about snorting coke in Mexico.
Yeah,
like
right, talking about he went to Reno and killed a man for the purpose of just to watch him die.
Yeah. He's got a song called "Cocaine Blues" about where he killed his wife.
Yeah.
He woke up, did a shot of cocaine, and shot her down. You know what I mean? Like, whoa!
And just see the grandmothers just clap their hands along with it.
Johnny Paycheck has a pretty cool song called "Outlaw's Prayer." Mm-hmm. If you should look it up if you never heard it.
He's the guy who sings "Take This Job and Shove It."
He basically goes. It's a dictation song. He's just talking. He's not really singing, but he goes to this church and they kick him out basically because he doesn't have good shoes on his feet and he's got long hair and all this stuff. And then he's sitting there praying outside the church, talking about how the women in the church were on the front row of the show last night singing "Sing Shove It," and it's just funny to see the implications of that. How like he was worshipped, and I say it loosely, but I mean it. He was literally worshipped by crowds of people while he played his music, but then kicked out of the church because he had long hair and a beard.
Yeah.
And then he saw a picture of Jesus on the way out and was like, I don't think you'd mind, my tattered clothes and my shoes on my feet.
I don't think a divine entity would mind that at all. I think it would be irrelevant.
Well, that's what's funny is 90% of the Christians out here are like, well, don't mark your body, don't get tattoos, don't put marks upon your flesh. But on the same page, it says not to shave off the corner of thy beard or bring baldness upon thy head.
Yeah.
It's like, what? How can you pick and choose?
Yeah.
You pick one,
you're
throw it
eating
other.
some lobster bisque over there.
Exactly.
Kind of noticed that's here.
You ain't got a problem with pork chops there, Playboy, or wearing polyester. Like, what's going on?
It's cherry picking morality. Mm-hmm. So,
but I think that's where my faith differs from everyone. I don't believe it's morality in the sense of religion. I believe religion is man-made in an attempt to achieve eternity. But I believe, as far as the actual code of ethics in a religion goes, it was more of just an operational manual. It tells you what is associated with each of those actions. Adultery is associated with a broken home. Tattoos are associated with being peculiar. Dishonoring your family is associated with not achieving success. Like, it's interesting to see all these things. The reason why pork was on there was because if you eat pork, you get sick. Yep. Especially back then when they had no refrigeration.
Oh yeah, worms, man.
It was a way different process, And same thing with shrimp and sushi and all that stuff. Like, just because we can do it without experiencing condemnation doesn't mean it's the best route.
Yeah.
And no offense to our vegan friends, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
It's a religion to the same extent.
I think it's veganism is American as fuck.
Yeah.
Nowhere else in the world would a culture thrive.
It's a luxury.
It is, but now, like 100 years ago, if that was your religion, you're not going to have a very long life. Either that, or you're going to cave on your own religion.
You know that in Scripture, don't you? It says, one man who is weak eats only herbs, another who is strong eats all things. Let not him which eats judge him that eats not, or him that eats not judge him that eats. But it's interesting because in a primal culture, you would be weaker if you had to exist off of barley and grain and what you could scavenge.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any protein.
Exactly.
Or the same amount of protein in your diet.
And you wouldn't have the same luxury we had to exist in comfort. You would be on a farm. You would give out halfway through of a 6-hour day full of hard labor if all you're eating is lentil. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
Plus, what if you're on the frontier and you're trying to move through wilderness to get to the other coast?
Well, that was actually one of my arguments with the people you were mentioning earlier that you were talking about that were vegan. I challenged them. I was like, yo, if you'll go live for 30 days off the land with me in South Georgia eating only a vegan diet, I'll be vegan for the rest of my life. But you can't use anything cultivated. You can't buy anything from any corporate entity. You have to solely whatever you can harvest or capture yourself. That's what you eat. Yeah. But you would starve to death in South Georgia eating palmetto hearts and pecans. That's all you got.
Would.
Blackberries and pecans. There's no wild corn here. Like we cultivate corn. Like it's only through the I say corporate slavery that the vegan culture can even exist, because you have to be purchasing from non-local parties. Like it's impossible. Yeah, you can't find here in bumfuck Georgia, you can't find someone that has an industry that exists solely off of what they produce and what they sell and it'd be vegan. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And when you incorporate all the GMOs and everything, it's really not that much healthier, you know?
Yeah. Well, the GMOs are like most things. I find it to be interesting because if we just paint that topic with a broad brush, we don't get anywhere, right?
Exactly.
Because people are like let's compartmentalize let's unpack this a little bit, because GMOs also allow our bread to exist for like more than 36 hours.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
My fat ass likes my bread.
I like bread too, man. I do like fresh baked bread better. What?
Breader.
Go on.
I like breader bread, butter bread.
What's the breadest bread you got here?
You got anything breader? But I do love fresh baked bread. But at the same time, if I had to go and exist in an apocalyptic scenario, that's going to be impossible to actually support. But at the same time, in that apocalyptic scenario, you're going to lose most of the corporate packaged things that are going to last for weeks.
Yeah, hunter-gatherers will survive.
Exactly.
Not the civilized world.
Exactly. The barbarians of sorts. But as far as the GMO goes, like, broccoli was created.
Yeah.
Broccoli didn't exist. We made it by modifying.
One of the best things we've done as a species.
Yeah, I fucking love it. It's so
broccoli.
Good. So great. Yeah. Give me steak and bacon, baby. I'm fine with it.
I'll put some broccoli on that steak.
But if you look at what a pig actually is. Huh?
I'm hungry now.
Well, me too. But if you look at what a pig actually is
there a broccoli steak shop here?
I don't know.
you got them Impossible burgers, you know, if you want your estrogen up high.
Nah, that's okay. I cry enough.
A lot of soy in there. But if you look at what a pig actually is, it's hardware that was introduced into an ecosystem that has software to consume waste. Yeah. It takes away. It's literally nature's garbage truck. But we can't take our garbage trucks and make bacon. You see what I'm saying? So to see a pig that can exist in an ecosystem, do its job, and then be harvested and used to the benefit of the people around them is a beautiful thing. To see one that just dies and rots, to me, that's wasteful. Like, it doesn't make any sense not to take advantage of the opportunity that you have there, you know?
I will agree with my vegan friends that there are problems within the cultivation and animal farms.
Oh, cruelty, yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I've got friends of mine, you know, up in Lakeland that are farmers that, hey, this cow has lived like 30 plus years.
Not Biscuit. Not my boy Biscuit.
But if it's if
you trying to get a rib steak, I'm going to put him down. Yeah, call me, man. We'll meet at the cabin.
That's like, you shouldn't, and like you said, it's a waste. Like if the animal's dying, like, I mean whenever my pets
I'm gonna eat it,
gotten old,
gonna eat it.
Well, I mean, I don't eat my pets.
Yeah,
let me clarify.
I mean, I'll eat a puppy.
I only eat the delicious pets.
Yeah, if I have to, I'll eat one. Yeah. Bold of you to assume I would eat a dog if I'm starving.
I mean, that's why I keep Roxas in there.
Right,
Just in case. That's why they're in the van with me all the time.
Make a mean.
Van's been broken down 30 minutes. I'm gonna have to start looking for food.
Our little one goes first.
Edgar make 3 good wontons.
Exactly.
You'd be good to go. But it is detrimental to consume that much meat over time. Like Elvis died with 8 pounds of undigested red meat in his colon. You know? But that's because we were created for feast and famine, and we don't go through famine periods in America. We all feast all the time. No famine to ever actually fast and reset your cycles. And then you were talking about the cruelty and the production of the meat, and I think that to me it's heartbreaking to watch a bunch of vegans be upset about a pork factory or a chicken production place or whatever, when there are millions of Americans being incarcerated, being treated with cruelty right now, and they don't even try. You know what I mean? It blows my mind, just the hypocrisy of it.
Well, people are people too.
People are people too.
Yeah,
people are people too. I mean, we're not eating them or anything, so I guess
not yet. I mean, give me a couple years. You know.
I mean, it could happen.
It could.
It could fucking happen. They start cloning people for.
Oh man, if you could clone yourself, would you kill and eat your clone, just to try it?
Absolutely.
I think I would.
This is a deep question.
Just because.
Can I do like sexual things first? Or?
We're just taking that route. We're taking that route in that case.
I'm curious about being gay, but I've never met anyone that I really wanted to hook up with. So, like, if I saw a me in the distance, I'd be like, oh, that man got it going on.
I'd be like, that man's standards are just as low as mine.
Nice dick, homie.
Oh, if that's the case, I'd be like, man, that looks like a very disappointing man right there.
He looks like he needs to be held. You want to be the little spoon this time?
He needs a hug.
That's what sucks about being tall, man. Like, why can't I be the little spoon?
Anytime I'm the little spoon, I always have to get in like fetal crouch position.
Every time I'm the little spoon, I just feel like they're the backpack. I'm just like, okay. I just have a person behind me now. I'm not really being held.
I'll tell you how it is being a small guy. It is...
Comfortable car rides. I can take a shower anywhere. I look good in the bathtub.
I don't know, man. I'm getting older, so I don't look as good in the bathtub.
Like balls
anymore.
float to the top when you get in. Or
they
something.
are a natural safety flotation device at this point.
You know what I really want?
I just rest my phone on top of
There
mine
you
in
go.
water.
There you go.
It just sort of floats and I can watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
At least you're not like shitting in the shower and like Joey Diaz.
No.
Like,
Maybe
it,
if I ever get like, incredibly wealthy and like 400 plus pounds.
My current employer, when he built his shower, my current employer, when he built his shower, he had an extra large sewage drain put in because he has a tendency to get intoxicated and shit himself and puke himself in the shower. So he literally built it so that it could compensate for the amount of fecal matter and vomit.
At least he was planning ahead.
He didn't believe me.
Believe it.
So I FaceTimed him and was like, hey, why'd you put that big ass pipe in your shower? So I can shit in there, no? No hesitation, entire honesty. It was great, man. But what I want to experience that I feel like I'll never get a chance to experience is being picked up and thrown in the air like a child. I just feel like like I just had the time of my life. You know what I mean?
It's fun. You do that shit to me all the time.
I love picking Bobby up.
You should find yourself some like 7 foot tall lumberjack like out in Saskatchewan. He doesn't know the internet's been invented yet.
I'll go viral.
By the way, Saskatchewan is scary as fuck. I just remember you just
ain't that bitch on that coin?
PTSD episode just kicked in.
Ain't that lady on that coin?
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. No. That's that hairy bitch that runs through the woods. And
I seen a Saskatchewan.
Sam Squanch, Ricky. It's called a Sam Squanch.
Oh man.
There's definitely some squatch out here.
You ever seen Strange Wilderness? Where they go in the nature documentary or whatever, they find Bigfoot?
Maybe?
It's got like the Happy Madison cast in it.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
They may not be a Happy Madison production, but they like go out and they're filming a nature documentary, and it's got a little homie in it from fucking Daddy Daycare, the Star Trek dude. I can't remember his
Leonard
name.
Nimoy?
I can't remember his name.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not Star Trek guy from Star Trek. It's the guy from Daddy Daycare that loves Star Trek. He was a nerd. We'll have to link it. But they find Bigfoot. They find Bigfoot, and they're all armed with automatic weapons. And Bigfoot comes out and he goes, huh? And they're like, just like shooting down. Like, I'm pretty sure it was a rawr. And then homie's like, I think he said, huh? He's like, no, he said rawr. But they just unnecessarily murder fucking Sasquatch in his cave. But it's so good, man.
We got him, fellas.
There's actually, to take it to a different note there's actually a primitive orangutan that lived in North America. I believe it's Giganthrocopithecus or something like that. It might be.
I feel like you made that up.
I'm not. I'll Google this shit right now. But it was a native orangutan that existed in America.
Have you guys ever seen the it's like footage on YouTube of swamp apes, for lack of a better
You talking
term.
about like skunk ape in it?
Yeah.
Gigantopithecus. He's the
Yikes.
largest ape, the largest ape that ever lived, and he lived in
Harry and
America.
the Henderson shit,
He
man.
lived in America, man. That's a freaking Sasquatch, dude.
Yeah.
Also, another incredible film, if you want to educate yourself on Sasquatch and Hitler at the same time, it's called The Man Who Killed Adolf Hitler and Then Bigfoot. That's the name of the movie, and it's Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
It is
Sam Elliott?
It's incredible. He's basically a soldier that actually assassinated Hitler, and the federal government comes and hires him to take out this Bigfoot creature. And the Bigfoot creature, like when it drinks out of a body of water, it pollutes the water with an infectious bacteria because it has such a high calorie intake that it would make the animal sick and slow, and then he was immune to it, so he could eat the carrions in order to survive. But in the movie, they touch on some pretty cool things, like that species apparently, like, I mean, it's fictional, you know, but that species would bury their dead and like have funerals, and like we've noticed primates doing that in certain areas of the world, and it's part of the theory of why there's no bodies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But crazy fucking film.
Have you ever seen Lloyd Pye, Everything You Know Is Wrong?
No, I haven't, but it sounds like something I'd love.
It's a pretty pretentious title, you know, but
Grain of salt type thing.
Yeah. He talks about the human origins and things of that nature, but he talks about the argument of skeptics that will say that, well, we don't have any fossil records of pre-humans or Sasquatch, anything like that.
Yeah.
So he postulates the argument that, well, if you think about that, we came in, we're pack hunters, and we take over the riverbeds, the valleys, the coastlines.
Anything fertile.
Yeah. And where would that leave these other hominids or human-like creatures to go to? Well,
Cryptoids.
The mountaintops, the deserts, the tundra,
The uninhabitable
the swamps,
areas, yeah.
places where we do not personally live. And if you take that consideration of the ecosystems in which they theoretically would inhabit, try getting fossils out of a swamp.
Try getting anything.
Yeah. Try getting out alive of a swamp.
The ecosystem consumes everything. You can hide a human body out there and not find it.
Oh, yeah.
But
We've done it or anything. I mean, no.
right.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
There's a swamp in Texas called, I think it's Ukulele or something like that. Where in Texas? I actually misspoke. It's a swamp in Africa that's the size of Texas, but it's called Okalali or something else like that. But the primitive people there, the indigenous people, actually say that there are small dinosaur-like creatures that live in the swamp.
Yeah.
But you can't make it deep. Like we've only been a couple miles into it. We haven't been all the way through it.
It's somewhere near the Congo, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's such dense canopy cover that we can't see down with a helicopter or anything else like that. And there's actually still cannibal tribes and stuff that live there. It's pretty crazy, like how far from society it is, you know. But supposedly we know everything. So
We don't know squat.
we know dick about dick, man.
No.
We've barely drilled through our crust. You know,
yeah. Well,
it's
like-
hot down there.
Like, when was it? Probably, I've always been kind of conspiratorial minded, as we talked earlier. I like controversial things. So whenever I was little, I liked Marilyn Manson because he was controversial.
How long can
I
it
liked
stay a
Eminem.
conspiracy, though? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it's only a conspiracy until a certain point.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, there's got to be truth to it.
and then it becomes the form of conspiracy where it's like, people literally conspired together
Exactly.
for this.
Conspiracy of murder.
Yeah.
Bad deal.
So, like, for instance, when Copernicus came up with the idea that the Earth moves, like that was his big thing, was that there was the mobility of the Earth, and you see this schism that happens within dogma, wherein you have science is born, and you have religion, theology continue. So there are, as many things in places of power, there's politics involved, right? So within the Vatican, which, by the way, owns most of our telescopes and owns the world's largest binocular telescope, the Vatican
That means two eyes.
So they
That's why it's called a monocle. It's one eye.
What? That's crazy, man.
Freaking man.
Well, how am I supposed to wear that? I got two.
The damn Mandela effect. You know the damn the Peanut, Mr. Peanut?
Yeah.
You know he doesn't have a monocle anymore.
he did.
Berenstein Bears.
He did have a monocle, and the Berenstein Bears, they changed the font art on some of their books, so it's a way to bust through the Mandela effect. But with the Copernican thing, what the Vatican did is they had people in particular within the Jesuit group
Jesuit priests.
go into the Copernican model, and then some stay with the Ptolemy's model, the Ptolemaic model. And as centuries go on, time goes on, they had a guy, the top astronomer at the time, his name was Tycho Brahe.
Tycho Brahe.
Tycho Brahe had an assistant, Johannes Kepler. Kepler was the guy who postulated that the universe is non-uniform, that they move on ellipses, and it turns out that the math syncs up.
It matches up. The physics of it.
So at the time, Kepler was doing an update to Copernicus's model of the universe, and Tycho Brahe was doing an update to Ptolemy's model of the universe. So back in the day, they were teaching both models because they were somewhat equivocal. You could find math that would correlate with both of them. So Tycho Brahe came up with this model wherein it's a geocentric model, meaning the Earth is the center and in a preferred location. So the Earth is the center, the sun and the moon go around the Earth, and then everything else, all the planets still go around the sun. The mathematics of it work out even if you're using a flat Earth model.
Exactly.
It'll still work for that.
Heliocentric or geocentric.
Yeah, so as time goes on, it causes more and more debate because Kepler, they're pushing hard with Copernicus because it's the new, cool, inventive idea, and it spawned scientific revolution. So they arguably so, they want to see that progress.
There's also at a time where you had to prove it on paper because we had no technology to see outside.
Exactly.
So it was entirely theorized, and he tested it with math.
Yeah, so Galileo was the guy who found that it's not always smaller bodies going around the larger bodies. You know, Jupiter has moons.
Exactly.
So he was able to see that. As time goes on, and this is around the time, I think it's after the Principia Mathematica, it's Isaac Newton's book, that Mach, where we get the term like Mach 5, Mach 3,
Speeds.
Ernst Mach came up with a mathematical formula, it's Mach's principle, that shows that rotation is actually relative. So there is no physical way for us to prove nor tell if space is fixed and Earth is rotating, or if Earth is fixed and it's space that is rotating. We get the same results either way. Later on down the road, Einstein would argue that they're equivocal. They're called coordinate systems. Have you heard of the Michelson-Morley experiment?
I don't think so.
So this is pretty wild. But imagine that they were trying to find a way to prove how far the Earth could move, right? So they postulated that space is filled with this ether-like substance, a medium for which light to move through. So what they postulated was that if, we'll say my fist is the Earth, right? So, and it's moving, we'll say you're the sun, right? So it's going around like this. So they postulated that at the surface of the wind, a light beam projected with it is going to be faster than one projected across it. It's kind of like if you're in a river and you swim with the current, you're going to move a lot faster to the shore than you will be if you try to swim. So what they did in this experiment, they had imagine like four corners, right? Okay. So in this one corner, they shot out a light beam, and in the middle there's this prism. The light beam hits the prism and it splits in two. One of them makes a 90-degree angle, and the other one continues straight. At the end of here, there are mirrors. So light hits, whoop, it rejoins. The one that took a 90-degree turn initially will now go straight, and the other one will make its 90-degree turn. So what they would do is they theorized that however much the two waves were out of phase with each other, that would show you how far the Earth had moved.
Okay.
So it's a pretty brilliant way
that is intelligent.
So what they found was it was zero.
Yeah, stationary.
So, and this may make you think, well, why do we even know who Einstein is? So my argument is this: Einstein found a Band-Aid for it because they were disappointed in the experiment. So he used what he called the Lorentz transform, wherein you say that, okay, well, we'll treat light as a constant, and then mass, length, and duration will be altered. And it found a way going into the 20th century to keep heliocentrism afloat and alive. Now, after this, in comes Hubble, right, where the Hubble telescope comes from. So Hubble found that there are actually galaxies away from us as well. Kind of the same thing the church burnt Bruno about back in the day. But he found that the ones that were 5 times further away were moving 5 times as fast as the ones that were like 1 light time away. And they also had a difference in color. They became redder. So it was known as the red shift. So it was hard to explain because with Big Bang cosmology, it's there is no center, right? It's
chaos.
It's non-uniform. So in order to make it work, they came up with dark energy and dark matter, because there has to be something that is holding all of this together, even though the outer one are moving further away and faster,
expanding.
And there has to be an energy that would push them. So they came up with dark energy. And in a heliocentric model, that is the majority of the observable universe. Dark energy and dark matter.
Negative space.
So a way around that, and which is as odd as it is, a much simpler explanation is that if the Earth is the center, it's velocity. And that's it.
Exactly.
And Hubble said that it is an intolerable point of view because it puts the Earth in a specialized place.
Stationary.
Yeah. And
they don't like that.
They don't like that at all. And that's not something I was ever taught in science class.
Exactly.
They give us these models whenever you're younger of like the planets and the sun's the center and all this.
The same entity that taught us that Christopher Columbus discovered America, though.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't Africans that had already come over here.
Exactly. It definitely wasn't habitated already. But that's
No. The European, we were the first ones.
It's ours.
We got here first.
History is written by the victor, man.
It is.
We
offended Bobby. I'm sorry.
He looked 62 years old when he stood up there.
I can't move my neck at all. Like, I'm having to sit here like this the whole time.
Dude, get a pillow, bro.
I'm good. We're here.
Nope. Thought I had a pillow right there. I didn't.
This is secret pillow stash.
Like,
It's somewhere. I don't know where.
This is it. This is all the motion I got in my neck.
But it's like stuff like that is it's wild to think about, especially because you mentioned something earlier about education, like being like
the university, the study of the universe. Something intangible to the majority of our population.
Right.
Something they can never experience, never see with their own eyes. It takes faith. It takes a remarkable amount of faith.
It goes something to say about as far as the current state that we're in, as I'm sure you all have read at least once online about the whole punch a Nazi like thing, which, I mean, let me be clear, fuck Nazis.
Yeah, I'll punch a Nazi.
Personally I don't care. But yeah, I'll see people that are they're very vocal about this, and they want you to know where they stand. It's like, all right, man.
Most of them wouldn't crush a grape. Wouldn't crush a grape in a food fight, you know.
But I came across one of my friends that
It's me.
His name's on the mic.
It's meant to be.
I came across one of my friends who was very adamant about that, and they're wearing a NASA shirt, and I was like, okay.
Let's get into this.
Let me ask you something then. I was like, what do you know about NASA? And of course, most of they know is what most of us know. The
moon,
Apollo program.
Exactly.
So there's this thing, Operation Paperclip, that was started in 1946 or 47, wherein the U.S. government under the Truman administration recruited Nazi scientists, propagandists, and other ministers of war and information to come and work for the government. And NASA was founded up, and the CIA was founded up. And these had Nazis in them.
And a lot of them are still here.
A lot of them are still
They're
here.
dying off, but some of them are still here.
Werner von Braun. He was one of Hitler's right-hand rocket engineers, and
But as
he
far as
headed
physics
up.
and science go, they were
They were
top
on
of the
some
league.
shit.
Top of the league.
They were. They had pole position. So it makes sense why we recruited them. Yet at the same time, if you're going to be postulating the idea that anything Nazi scientists did is bad, and you're wearing a NASA shirt, and you're listening to music,
And you're taking an Adderall.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Makes no
but
sense.
people don't want to talk about these kind
They
of
want to
things.
compartmentalize.
Yeah, they want to just say, well, I don't know how much I believe that. Bro, Google it.
Exactly.
Google it.
Exactly. I don't know how much I believe my fucking 5th grade school teacher
No.
that told me all this bullshit.
No, well, I mean, the whole idea with being skeptical and conspiratorial minded is not that like you should believe the other narrative instead.
Exactly.
It's that no, you should hear the counter argument to an official narrative and then try to make your own opinion about it.
Scripture says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is true. Prove it all. If you can't prove it, throw it away.
Yeah.
Period. If you can't actually concrete prove it, why are you putting faith in it? You
Yeah.
know? But
So I look at some of these things that come about, in particular with big tech censorship, and it's like, well, why are some of these big tech companies wanting to censor 9/11 truth videos and flat Earth truth videos and all this stuff? And it's because I think the same reason they made psychedelics illegal. It's because it makes people think.
exactly, it enlightens.
Yeah.
It enlightens. It creates the ambition to better your knowledge on the particular topic that you're talking about, instead of just sourcing and being like, oh, well, what I was taught in school.
Yeah, it's right here. Like
Yeah.
I've seen people, their counter arguments for some of the flat Earth arguments, which I personally find really interesting because it's exciting.
It's
We're in
fun.
a new
It's
time of
fun.
science.
Yeah, it's fun.
And plus, you get to like.
Why are you mad, bro? Like, what's up?
You can see how triggered people get. Like, well,
Exactly.
we have all this pictures and evidence. It's like, bro, you see how upset you're getting. That means you haven't really thought about this before.
Exactly. It's because they feel challenged, that it's actually a possibility that they could be beaten in this argument.
Yeah.
You know? But it's insane to me to not test it, to just be able to just accept what you're taught as the doctrine. You know, like it blows my mind when people are sitting there telling me facts that they read in the textbook, and then they look up the textbook, and that textbook had to have 500 errors changed 2 years after it was printed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, why is that your Bible right now? It makes no sense. You know.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. But with most of the things that we're taught, like, it requires the ability to check it out. Like I believe it was Pythagoras that figured everything out from being paralyzed. He was bedridden, and he was using ceiling tiles to match up and formed an entire theory of geometry. He could have just accepted what was the norm at that time period and never pushed that bar, and we wouldn't know much of the stuff we know about geometry right now, you know? But because he was willing to step outside the box, because he was confined to the circumstance where he had to, it created that motivation to actually push the bar. But most people just accept whatever doctrine they were raised in as the gospel, and they run with it, you know?
Yeah, and both people of the theistic and atheistic variety. Like, just because you substitute Muhammad or Jesus for Karl Marx doesn't mean you've solved a problem.
Or Hagen.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's like, well, all right, that's cool, and again, not to keep using them, but like our vegan pals, where it's like I don't catch any fundamental vibes from any of those cats.
Exactly.
None of them, but I do catch it from people that are into theology or into atheology.
Well, it's like I had a kid debating over me one time. We were actually discussing flat Earth and the origin of man. Is what we were discussing. I was explaining how humans have an intrinsic value. They were born with it, and that because they exist, they have value. Not because of their wealth, not because of their success, not because of anything of that nature, but just because they exist, they have a value. And that's kind of the same argument the vegans use for animals. Yeah. Just because he exists, it doesn't matter if he's pretty, it doesn't matter if he can be used for meat, whatever. Just because he exists, he has a value. But this kid that was arguing me was an African American dude, and he was using Darwinism to preach to me. And when I called him, I was like, well, man, do you understand that Darwin was a racist? Darwin believed that you were a step below me because you were closer to the animalistic nature. Your DNA isn't the same as mine because you were a species that hadn't evolved yet. And he didn't believe me. I looked up the title of the book and showed him where the original title for the origin of species was The Preservation of Life Through Favored Races. And Darwin actually promoted the fact that American Indians could be cattle because they were savages. They were more animalistic, more primal of sorts than the Caucasian Europeans that came over, but it was just a cultural difference, an exposure to what was actually was. To think about it in a realistic example, the natives in America had a lot better system for preserving nature. They didn't leave a footprint. They were they used every part of the animal when they harvested, et cetera, et cetera. The Europeans brought smallpox and plague and just immediately wiped out all the bison, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just destroying this nature. But their system was supposedly better. That doesn't make any sense to me to look at it that way. So what you have there at its root is that education is your value. How smart you are on whatever subject. And Burt Reynolds in Smoking the Bandit said it depends on where you're standing when you say something as to just how dumb you are. And I always appreciated that, because I'm sure if John Smith came by himself, it would have been a different outcome. But because he brought ships full of because he brought ships full of more Europeans who were educated on what they thought was the best way, the best route, and then they justified just countless murder, just genocide on a vast level.
What's weird about folks like Darwin and I forget who the lady was who started Planned Parenthood,
the predecessor,
but all of these ideas of eugenics, like they tied in with Nazi ideology, and they tie in currently with Bilderberg Group ideology, where under the guise of environmentalism, like they have gone in and said, well, we're gonna, like for example,
we're overpopulated.
We're overpopulated, and I think it was Bill Gates said something like, well, if we fix our vaccines, we can cure or help overpopulation. It's like, that kind of sounds like genocide, bro.
Exactly what genocide is.
It kind of sounds like you're killing people with a vaccine.
I don't believe in overpopulation. I believe in mismanagement.
Yeah,
we're not overpopulated. We're mismanaged. There's not an appropriate distribution of wealth. So
we're overpopulated for the ruling class because there's too many of us that are not ruling class.
Exactly. Well, we're overpopulated in an economic stance, but if you think about, like I was saying earlier, with the pigs being a hardware and a software, human beings are, like, as a whole, our programming is to consume. It is to take. We've actually reached a point of enlightenment now where we're more conservative minded, trying to save our planet, trying to focus on the environment and things like that. But essentially, if you look at New York City, that is a big spot of bacteria on a fruit. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just rotting away, slowly eating away. A friend of mine made a really good example where he said the other day that we're not a mold because he appreciates a dry aged steak. And I was like, I've never thought about that, but you still have to shave that excess. You have to shave what's exposed to it. So overpopulation, in the sense of that we can't all achieve the same financial prosperity.
Right.
That makes sense. Overpopulation, as far as what our job is on Earth, doesn't make sense to me. Because it seems like the goal would be to be as populated as possible without leaving a footprint. You know what I mean? To be able to fit as many people in here as we can, but then also all live the same amount of luxury, Yeah. It's impossible. Poverty will always exist. We'll always have...
You still have that equal opportunity.
Exactly. And we should still be allowed to serve our purpose as far as humanity goes, So... as far as the natives go, we look at Native Americans and see that they didn't build cities like we built. Not here anyway. They did in other places. Right? They had
more southern though.
Exactly,
like Central and South America.
There's interesting theories on that as well. Egypt and Atlantis and stuff. But as far as the European creature, like, it's crazy to see that most of the natives here, they didn't have the allergies like we had. They didn't have
there was
the diseases that we had.
There was this guy. He I forget his name. Graham Hancock was talking about him. Graham Hancock's like fucking awesome.
Oh yeah.
But he talked about there was this guy who maybe it's the 15th or 1600s traveled from Europe and went through the Amazon. He started at the west end of the Amazon and moved his way towards the Atlantic.
Okay.
And he came across cities in the jungles of like dense cities and wrote about them all in his book, and like was it the cartography of like how to get to them. So whenever it was like 100 years later, these new expeditions got money to go and inspect these cities, they were all gone. And the reason being is because he brought smallpox.
Exactly. He eliminated entire indigenous cultures. Yeah. It's crazy to think about. But one interesting thing as well is like I study a lot of the venomous reptiles and stuff. All the pit vipers that are native to America, most indigenous cultures here had natural antibodies for them. If they were bitten by certain species of pit viper, they wouldn't have the same detrimental effects as we did. But as far as
our ancestors are from different hemispheres.
Exactly. But you see, if you dropped a Cherokee person in the tundra, they're going to get sick and die pretty quickly. You know what I mean? They're not going to be able to survive on the same diet. They were acclimated to that circumstance. But there's actually a theory right now that I've been studying pretty heavily, that sickle cell.
Thank you.
Ooh, sickle cell was actually. But sickle cell was actually an evolutionary trait, because a lot of the snakes there, when they bite when they release their venom into you, it actually thins the blood. So rather than coagulating like American pit vipers, it thins the blood. Native Americans are notorious for free bleeding. What's the word? Hemophilia, yeah. Their blood doesn't clot appropriately, but American pit vipers, they coagulate the blood. So it would actually be a positive mutation if you were bitten by an American pit viper, whereas in Africa, if you were bitten by a mamba, that would make you bleed out of every orifice of your body. The people with sickle cell would be more apt to survive. They're inclined more to survive because their blood thins to an operational level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
It's pretty cool that wherever they were deposited, and some people argue that it was thousands of years of mutation. There's no positive mutation in the animal kingdom, for the record. If you want to look that up, they were studying the flies, and they noticed that some flies were born with curled wings, and they figured out they could take these flies with curled wings and breed them with each other, and they would produce more with curled wings, kind of like how we did with the Chihuahua. But now if you take a Chihuahua and you drop it off in the wild, it's not going to survive very well.
Right.
If you take a fly with curled wings, he doesn't fly as good. It'd be like saying that humanity evolved to the point where we had no arms, but we can't be handcuffed. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of ignorant to that degree. Like, yes, we can. There is macro evolution. There is evolution on a macro scale where you can actually see it change within the species, but there's no micro evolution where it actually changed genetics to become, like the word mammalia in Latin means having titties. That's what it means. Reptiles will never produce titties. They're not going to just grow breasts.
Unless they're like reptilian overlords.
Exactly. Unless they're like reptile beings made of light, But that's the thing, is that there's certain natural laws that we have to study and respect to that degree, But same thing with the samurai. They were eliminated as soon as we hit the point of firearms and bombs and gunpowder, you know what I mean? But for millennia, they survived with a primitive, very, I don't want to say simple, but very bare bones existence. They weren't greedy. They didn't achieve the same thing. They had emperors. They had political structure.
There was hierarchy.
They had government, and it's interesting to see that. But at the same time, their culture was wiped out by something that some people would argue is less advanced. You see, but at the same time, is it less advanced, or is it just a different culture from a different area that came in and happened to take advantage of it? Like you said with smallpox.
Yeah.
It's not that smallpox is a more advanced disease. It's just that there's no exposure to that,
Yeah.
So that their system's not prepared for it. But to look at the basics of genetics, we each have like your genetics code everything that's about you, just like coding with a computer. We have a growth inhibition code, so at a certain point we stop growing. Now that's in everyone's coding in their DNA. If you take a female tiger and a male lion and breed them together, you produce a liger. The thing about the female tiger is it lacks the growth inhibition code. It has no code to make it stop growing.
So that's why the ligers are so large?
They never stop growing. They grow until they die. So they can literally consume 50, 60 pounds of meat a day because they're a hybrid animal. Now they are sterile. Yeah, amen. Hey, holla. Come back for seconds, you know what I'm saying? But when we're studying with reptiles right now, most reptiles lack a growth inhibition code. They grow until the day they die. We were touching earlier when I was talking about the iguanas and how they look different from a year-old to 10-year-old. And if we could imagine one of 1,000, it would be a literal dragon, But what we're studying right now with the Eastern Diamondbacks is that certain, let's say like albinism, when something's born albino, it actually changes its genetic code. It's a mutation and it makes it a different animal. So most of the albinos that we work with are more docile. They're easier to handle, easier to move, and things like that because our theory on it is that it makes them more susceptible to predators in nature because they're super bright, easy to see, easy to spot. They have to be a little bit different than that, you know. Their camouflage doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what we've actually done is by certain species, by hybridizing certain species, we create entirely new venoms. Like the copperhead and the cottonmouth, they actually successfully hybridize copperheads and cottonmouth. They call them cottonheads, and it makes a new venom that is universal to both. So you can actually use that venom to produce antivenom that works for both species of snake.
It's pretty
wild.
wild.
It's pretty interesting. So by pooling every American pit viper, by pooling their venoms together, we've created crowfab. It's a universal antivenom. So if you get bit by a snake in America, you know how you always hear, if you get bit by a snake, bring it to the hospital. Take a picture of it so we know what it is. That doesn't matter anymore. As long as it's not an elipid, which the only one we have in America is a coral snake. It's a cobra venom. It's the same antivenom all the way around. But when we take certain species like the Eastern Diamondback and then the canebrake, it's Crotalus adamantius and Crotalus heritius. When you cross them together, you create a new species, a new creature, and its DNA is different. Some of them we theorize will grow forever. Some of them we theorize will stop growing at a certain point. Some of them will be naturally more docile. Some of them naturally more aggressive. Some of them will produce more venom yield. But it's essentially the same thing we did with dogs and cats and goats and cows. Exactly. We just isolate this certain gene pool and then produce more of it. And now when you look at that happen in captivity, when you study with science in captivity, you have to also look at it in nature and see that by hybridizing different cultures, we create this different species with an entirely new genetic code that then react differently. I love that you said selective breeding because that's occurred in history throughout time. You know, yeah. we can measure that with humanity, but at the same time, the American melting pot never existed before, not to the degree that it is now. So now we're seeing these new people with free thinkers, these crazy people that are capable of just running and doing all these athletic performances and stunts and things that were never possible years past, you know. And then at the same time, we have the exact opposite. We have these gene pools that have created where people don't leave the house all day. They couldn't run to the car if they wanted to. Right. We have people that are growing to be taller than what we have on record, and we have people that are smaller than we've ever had on record. And we can actually look at genetics and see that it's from the mixture of all these different genetics. And what's crazy about it is that for millennia, it was always stay with your kind, you know, yeah. Only breed with your kind, whatever. But now that we've hit this point of enlightenment in the postmodern world, as we'll call it, we have this point now where we have new beings being created, things that are way different than, we're not Caucasian anymore. We have very little to relate to with our European
from the
our European ancestors, yeah. Exactly. And I believe the same thing with the African Americans. An African American is way different than an actual African. The gene pool has been manipulated so much to the degree that we have entirely new cultures coming up that are capable of things that have never been measured in history. We have people that think different than anyone that's ever existed in history, and it's interesting to see the implications of that on such a vast level, you know, to watch us rise in not just politics or to be a world superpower or anything, but to see that there are 16-year-old kids now that are graduating college with insane amounts of degrees. We got savants that can just do incredible stuff, but then at the same time, they can't tie their shoes. Like it's interesting to see the implications of genetics on that vast of a scale.
I think you're correct in that, and for a couple of different reasons. But I think it's refreshing to see like so many people. Like I've got friends of mine that are like Generation Z, so they're like 20, 19 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
And what they're doing hanging out with my vagabond ass, I don't know, but...
Katie's looking married me. We don't relate. She asked me that. She's like, why are your friends so weird? Although we grew up on Jackass and Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie movies, and she's like, what are any of those things? I was like, oh my God. So I showed her all the Jackass stuff. She's like, okay, I understand you a lot better now. I was like, yeah. And then I showed her like House of 1,000 Corpses, The Devil's Reject. She's like, no wonder you're so dark. I was like, yeah, I was fucking 12. You know what I mean? Like, I was raised.
Evil's really cool.
I was raised on this shit, you know?
But I'll see.
Am I the old guy here? Am I the old guy here?
I don't think so. How old are you?
34.
35.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
I'm the old guy. Okay. So we're all kind of just...
29, baby.
Don't worry, it gets worse.
I'm the only 90s baby in the building.
Sure.
I'm fine with it.
But you're also more of an adult by standard because you have kids.
Yeah, you've got 4 times the amount of children.
Yeah, and both of us.
You got 4 times the amount of grays y'all got too, probably.
But I see I see a lot of these younger cats. They're hip to like psychedelics and like conspiracy theories and all this stuff.
They're a lot more attentive to it.
Yeah.
They just receive a lot easier, you know?
Well, there was this was a few years ago. There was a buddy of mine that and he and I had, we were just getting to learn each other and whatnot, and he had showed me a picture of blotter paper. Now, blotter paper is one of these things, it's a very esoteric reference. So, like...
That's like drug stuff, right?
So, blotter paper, for those who don't know, is perforated, I think that's the word, paper or little tearaway squares of an image, and you can drop lysergic acid onto it. So, he had showed me it was like an Alex Gray blotter paper.
Okay.
But
the Tool album covers and shit.
Something like that. So I'm
pretty sure it was Alex Gray that did all the Tool album covers.
So I look at him like, do you, we'll call him Smitty. I was like,
Smitty.
Do you take psychedelics, Smitty?
Right.
And he's like 18 at the time. He's like,
I mean, sometimes. When my mom's not home.
So, like, I was going on vacation that like next coming week. I was like, why don't you and your fiance come to the house while I'm on vacation?
Right. Partake.
Yeah. So we had some together, and I find that you can bond with people a lot more over psychedelics as a drug than something like alcohol.
Oh, for sure.
Like I really have no interest in like going out to bars and bonding over liquid drugs. I mean,
I bond over conversation. The alcohol may be present, but if it's not if I can't take anything from it, then now I'm just drinking.
Yeah, alcohol is just going to make me stupid and horny. Those are not really either endearing qualities.
And sometimes it's gonna definitely lower my ability to handle the bullshit. So I will be like, hey, you're dumb. I wish you'd stop talking right now.
I think I'd like to try me some of this alcohol.
You're coming off as stupid.
Because it's it's a good drug. It's a dangerous drug, man.
For sure.
Like, more people die from it than anything else.
Let's say that's 5%.
5%. Well, we got about 2+ hours on here. Oh shoot, the computer went off. No, she's still going.
We're live.
It's our first time.
We're still live. And this bad boy is charging now. Sorry for the palm tats there on the screen.
Well, on a positive note, I can actually move my head now.
Yay!
I'm gonna just get some of this bullshit out of my system.
Don't trust that motherfucker. But yeah, as far as the new generation comes, I feel like they are more receptive to certain things, but they're also they require foundation. Because they were raised in a generation by people that are like, hey, most of what you're hearing is bullshit. Sift through it.
Well, we had analog childhoods and digital adulthoods. So like within this small little sliver of
transition.
Yeah, there's a generation with overlap of different generations that knows what it's like. So I find our generation to be incredibly unique in that we will likely be the last ones for a while that have an analog childhood.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Also, if you look at it to the extent, like, my mother was a librarian, your mother was an art teacher. When we were 10, 12 years old, in order for us to learn something, we had to go to a place.
Yeah.
We had to go and get a book and read this book, and we just had to trust that that's what happened. There was no, what's the word I'm looking for? Comprehensive collective thought. There was no media for us to discuss everything with. I can get on Reddit right now and discuss whatever I want to talk about and get millions of opinions, and I think that's an interesting thing to see. So this generation coming up, they not only, it wasn't so much as faith-based, it was more of they could actually experience it. They could tangible. If they didn't believe in something someone was telling them, they could go on the internet and find someone that could back them up. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see that they lived in a generation to where if they didn't want to believe it, they didn't have to, whether it was true or not.
Right.
And that's kind of the hard part. So they grew up on Miley Cyrus, fucking Hannah Montana, and then they watched her wild out, you know what I mean? And to them, she's still Hannah Montana. So they have a lot more grace involved. So they're like, okay, well, she's still the girl that likes, no slut shaming, you know what I mean? Whatever, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, we had the exact opposite, where it was like, okay, well, like, even way back when with Johnny Cash, it was like, oh, well, he's in jail in Mexico, he's a fucking degenerate. You know what I mean? Like, God forget it, he did all his gospel albums, like we're talking about Kanye. Like, he's a Christian, now he's not a Christian, now he's a Christian again. It's interesting that they were raised in the exposure of all that. They saw all that to a level that we never experienced, you know? Yeah. We just heard rumors and whatever was on TMZ by the time we made it to
like
teenage adulthood, you know?
Like stuff with like the moon landing. Controversy, hoaxes, whatever you believe. Like whenever I was younger, that was like just wildly offensive to people to be like, no man, I don't believe the moon landing, because where did you get this information?
Exactly.
And it's always like they found.
Well, can you cite your sources?
Yeah, it's like some esoteric book that they found in like a library in Norton, Virginia in 1981 or something.
But then you have to think about all the libraries that were burnt 1,000 years before we were able to even read. Exactly, like an amazing amount of knowledge that it's forgotten now that we'll never get to experience. Or just like with the Roman Catholic Church, they have so many books in their library.
Yeah, they're archives.
You can't even get to unless you're a certain level of priesthood. You know what I mean?
So, certain level of pedophile.
Exactly. If you don't buy into our club and stick with our club for long enough, you'll never know this knowledge. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's pretty, I don't know. There was this...
it's industrialized is what it is.
There's industrialized religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just religion, education as well. Because if you think like...
it's all connected.
Socrates wasn't like, yo, cash at me $15 and I'll give you motherfucking secrets. You know what I mean? It was just his philosophy, and he shared it, and he went everywhere.
He paid the price for it too, drinking the hemlock.
Exactly. Nightshade.
They...
That's an Aesop Rock quote again. Antlers rise from my migraine.
But the touched on earlier, the group, the Jesuits, a political group in the Vatican. So the Jesuits were started. It was the Council of Trent, or before the Council of Trent.
They say the Rosicrucian Christians are tied in with the Jesuit priesthood.
I don't doubt it. So the Jesuits started as an answer to Protestant Reformation. In particular, Gutenberg had now invented the printing press. So before this, if you wanted a book, in particular the Bible, you had to be rich to be able to afford somebody to copy a book for you, or you had to go to the church and you could get a priest to read,
to dictate it,
to tell you what it says.
Book of Eli style.
So what the printing press gave was the ability for not only for it to be made quickly, but they were just handing out Bibles, and kids were learning how to read.
They still do it.
They still do.
Give a little red book.
So the Jesuit order
or you get little missionaries that come in here and just drop off.
I fuck with missionary.
Missionaries and communists, they always want to give you a pamphlet for you to read. Here, you've been wrong about certain stuff. We can just tell you how to improve it.
They don't call it the missionary position for nothing. Somebody's getting fucked.
There you go. But the Jesuit order, the brother...
Am I allowed to cuss? Was I supposed to be cussing?
I don't know. We've been doing it this whole time.
We can always censor retroactively. I've been cussing.
Okay. Permission to swear?
Permission granted.
Thanks, Tom. They were started as an anti-literacy group. So they started with the sole purpose of defeating liberalism. Because liberally teaching everybody that's not in the know how to read, and they worried that it would spread from there.
Detrimental to their hierarchy.
Yeah. So this is how it started. And like the Jesuit creed is like... pretty violent.
It's
pretty violent. It talks about it that they'll...
Barbaric.
Yeah, they'll flay, they'll torture, they'll stab, burn, poison, and anyone, like women, children, men, doesn't matter, if the importance to them is not about, it's not about anything divine, so it's not about God, it's not about the Christ or anything that the Christ represents within organized religion. It's solely about the hierarchy of the group itself. The term Illuminati comes from an Illuminati council the Jesuits were part of in 1776 of all years.
Crazy.
So, and it's not just limited to Rome, though Abraham Lincoln and William Morse, he's the guy who invented Morse code, they had correspondence with each other during the 1860s before Lincoln was murdered about terror plots from Rome, i.e. the Vatican.
Yeah.
So to rewind, after the Illuminati Council and all of that, there was, in the Arabian Peninsula, there was like pretty much civil unrest in that whole peninsula during the 1700s.
Anarchy.
And
I don't know what it is, but I love it.
but there was this group of ideologues called the Wahhabis. I forget his name. It's like Ibn Eaton Mana. It's like got two Y's.
I've been eating mana.
I've been eating mana.
I've been eating bread from heaven.
But what they believed was that religion had to have a supreme ruler. So the Jesuits believe this as well, and that the Pope and the Black Pope, who is the Shadow Pope, they are the rulers of the world and the hierophants that receive orders from the divine.
Directly from the source.
Correctly.
The horse's mouth.
So the Wahhabis and Wahhabism, what they taught was that the same principle that everything else, even interpretation of the Quran, Allah himself, and temples, all these things that show the beauty of God are an abomination to the order. So Wahhabi...
That's actually based in King James as well. The Jews believe that you're not supposed to try to make art about the Trinity or about the Father or the Son.
Yeah, that's why fundamentalist Muslims have a problem with the image or depiction of Muhammad.
Really upset with the cartoons and all that stuff, the terrorist attacks, etc.
So during this wartime, the Wahhabis found friendship in an alliance with the Saudis. The Saudis who control Arabia today, the same country wherein these poisonous religious ideologies, wherein if you don't follow in the hierarchy of their belief, you're an infidel and you're allowed to be killed. So they have Quranic abrogation, or let me see if I can say this right. Al-Nasik wal Masuk, or Al-Nasir wal Masuk. It means the abrogated and the abrogator. So it pretty much means it's their revelation. It's how the story ends. Whereas with Christianity, it ends with, the world ends, but there is redemption.
Millennial reign.
With this is that the end will not come from heaven, it will come from you, and the time is for holy war.
And fire.
Yeah, so what the Wahhabis and the Saudis believed in and made an alliance of, it's still that dominant culture today in that country. So that's where you see homosexuals being murdered by throwing off roofs, where women are, their testimony is worth less than a man's, where, so like the idea of like the true patriarchy, it's like, I agree, you should end the patriarchy. It's over in that part of the world.
The caliphate.
Yeah. And it's spread into Daesh as well. Daesh is where the Caliph, his school of thought, so it's the same school of thought that's in Northern Africa, that's in the slave trade. So I think it's important for us to like talk about these distinctions, because whenever we just use a single brush, not to use the same metaphor, but to talk about like some like fundamental Islam, it's like, well, arguably the same way I would argue that fundamental violent Christian mob, they're not Christians.
Exactly.
I would argue the same with Wahhabis, that it's nothing divine with what they do. It's a power structure.
Exactly. I agree entirely, and I believe that also extends to the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh yeah.
When you, the Crusades were a response to the Barbary pirates that were attacking at the time, but at the same time, none of it was justified.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that in the Ten Commandments, everyone always said, "Thou shalt not kill." But the original was, "Thou shalt not murder." Murder is the premeditated and unjustified killing of a human being. So they were able to kind of bypass that by saying, "Well, it's justified."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's justified because they broke this law. Christ is pretty specific. Don't be killing people. It doesn't make any
bad
sense.
News.
Exactly. But as far as the Quran goes, like, it's interesting that they have, at the same time that they're stoning homosexuals, they have marriage rights for prepubescent females.
Yeah.
It's like, you can marry a girl at 10 years old before her period as long as you follow these rules. You know what I mean? Like, what? That makes no sense. But that's how, like, we used to paint with one brush. That's where morality is cultural. Because to see, like, okay, so just because you're allowing marriage with that doesn't mean you get to kill homosexuals, or just because you kill homosexuals doesn't mean we're going to kill you for prepubescent marriage. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's interesting to see that. But Jesus was mentioned more times in the Quran than Muhammad.
Yeah, sure was.
It's very
not
interesting.
a lot of people that know that.
Not many people have read the Quran.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see the correlation between the two, and then also if you even fast forward to Mormonism and the modern reinterpretations of things, as we'll say, it's interesting to see how similar they are in their bare roots, like just the basic primal version of these things. But it's hard for us because we're taking it all out of context. We exist in a postmodern society.
Yeah.
I keep saying postmodern because I believe we are past the modern element and going on in the futuristic now, as far as the way we live, But it's interesting to think that, well, we see it this way, but then if you go back 2,000 years ago, will we feel the same? Like if we were raised in Saudi Arabia in the year 225 BC, like how would we feel about morality? It's entirely contextual in what you go through yourself, circumstantial,
Right.
So as far as us being Southern, I was raised that cussing was bad. You know what I mean? But in Scripture, when it says to abstain from profane language, profane meant common. It meant don't talk about common shit. Yeah. The small talk. Keep yourself elevated at a certain level.
Well, there used to be anyway differences between obscenities, profanities, and just.
Exactly. We touched on this one day on a Facebook status because I posted the fornication under consent of the king.
Yeah.
And you said it actually was where they were prod and poke with a stick.
Yeah. The word fuck initially meant to prod or goad with a stick, but as far as a euphemism, like it didn't just. Because you can see where a euphemism, prod with a stick,
exactly,
would mean that. But what it
he's talking about fucking.
Talking about getting it in.
Getting some stank on the hang down.
What it initially meant and why it was obscene and dirty was because it was about a person of the cloth revoking their celibate vow to fornicate with other members of the cloth.
And another interesting touch on that is using the Lord's name in vain. That actually means do not use my name out of your vanity. Yeah. That's what vain is, to your own vanity. And what's funny is throughout history, you can see people using the name of God to justify their evil. But don't say God damn it. How? That doesn't make any sense that you're sitting there telling me that.
I would always ask people, I'd be like, okay, so is it offensive if I say, God damn it, that was a great sermon about Jesus today? Wouldn't you agree? Well, is that offensive?
I had a huge discussion with the preacher, the one about Austin that I taught that for a while.
Oh, yeah. I remember how that went down.
Yeah, I actually preached to the congregation 3 times there. Did all kind of stuff on the apocalypse and what was coming and historical stuff. I did a flat earth type thing, creationism type sermon once, and it was actually really awesome. We started a Tuesday night class just so I could teach people that I knew, and then I got to preach to the congregation 3 separate times. But the elders of the church didn't like what I was saying, so they actually voted me out politically. And like, well, we don't really want you talking about stuff like this anymore. And I'm like, but it's in the scripture. Like, yeah, but no thank you, Well, his brother, you know Tyler, don't you? Yeah. His brother was at church one day, and it was a Tuesday night class, and we're doing everything, and he just said fuck real loud, because it's just what we do, you know what I mean? It's not odd to us. It doesn't make us feel weird. All the people in the church was like, oh, shit. And Tim actually had to have a sermon to his congregation about, hey, we don't judge for stuff like that. Like, we want people to feel comfortable here, more or less. But it took an hour-long discussion of me and him to even come to that conclusion, because I was trying to explain to him that I can hurt your feelings without cussing.
Oh, yeah.
I can say some vile shit without ever uttering an obscenity. I can hurt your feelings.
In fact, I would argue that usually, for me, like if somebody curses at me, like they say, like "F you" to me, I get offended not at the curse word, but at the elementary insult. It's like that's all
that's
you
the
got.
best you got, dude?
You
Like,
can tell me to go fuck myself.
yeah, exactly. Yay!
Wow.
Bravo.
See,
Bravo.
that's actually a natural defense system of mine. Is if I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm threatened or someone's insulting or something like that, I don't cuss out of principle.
Yeah, exactly.
I just, as articulate and as educated as I can, tear them the fuck down.
I try to maintain calmness
exactly.
the whole time.
I cuss out of happiness. I cuss out of experience, emphasis. That's just fucking dope. That's me. I'm not a fuck you. Go fuck yourself. No, I mean I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
I say it as jokes. I tell Bobby go fuck yourself 3 times a day. You know what I mean? But
You're worthless. You're not good at your job. Go fuck
I
yourself.
don't say you're worthless. I never said that.
No. Never.
What? You hurt my feelings now. Texas. But what's funny is I feel like the people that I give the most shit, like my friends, we don't get butthurt about stuff like that.
shouldn't
You know
get
what I mean?
butthurt about it.
But we would get butthurt about someone saying something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
We would get butthurt about someone starting a rumor or saying something that was, even if it was true, if it was harmful, you know what I mean? To talk about someone's deceased relative or something else like that would be crossing the line to us. You can tell us fuck you all day long. It won't even hurt our feelings, we're thick skinned. But you can invert that to where the pastor can sit down and tell you that you're a piece of shit and your life's in shambles because you're living in sin, son. And somehow that's not offensive? That's not insulting, you know what I mean? That doesn't make sense to me.
He was whistling. I looked over, then we made eye contact, and that's when he stopped. He's just doing this right here. And then we made eye contact. He did Kanye on me. He goes,
It's an African gray parrot, not a human being. just want to clarify for the camera. Just some dude in there whistling. What the fuck's Charlie doing? He's talking shit. Charlie.
"What's up, man? You want to go?" I can whistle now. No, I can't. You want to be part of the show?
But I think that boils down once again to culture, man. Like, if I was to wind up stranded on some island somewhere that I'll even go so far as to say something no one's ever discovered, I'm not going to speak the language. I'm not going to understand their dress code. I'm not going to understand their diet, any of those things. But none of those things make me better than them or make them better than me.
Right.
It's just a difference between us, And I think that's the main problem with American Christianity is they miss that in the book. They miss that we're all the same creature. Like we all have our tendencies one way or another. And whereas our culture might frown on someone sagging their pants, that culture would frown on someone wearing them around their fucking waist.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Neither one of those deserve hellfire or the death penalty. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think a lot of it goes back to the tribalistic
For sure.
notions where it's like, well, this is different and I can't control it, so
I don't like it.
yeah.
That guy with the tattoos is scary, so he's going to burn in hell forever and ever. But then at the same time, if they wound up in a tribe in Africa that's covered in tribal tattoos, they're going to be like, oh shit, let's kill the white man. Kill this bearskin fucker over here,
He is not a warrior.
Exactly.
Let us feast upon his flesh. He looks delicious.
But culture is such a protected thing, though. Like, if you think about it, like, people get pissed because a white girl's got cornrows. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why?
Well,
how does that make sense? What
think-
do we own?
I think people want just a reason to be offended and a reason for them to virtue signal their bullshit.
I think people just want to own something because we live in a generation where we don't really own anything.
No.
Like
It's
most
all
of,
been done before.
and most of the people that I know, they like these tattoos are the only thing I'll have forever. Like, these little things going in the trash. These jeans are going to go in the yard sale of the trash. This T-shirt I won't have it forever. The car, the $30,000 vehicle that you buy, you'll have for 10 years, maybe. That's being generous. You know what I mean? Most people are going to swap out sooner than that. So we are infatuated with things that can't leave us. Things that we can. It's a weird hill to die on. Is the way that I look at it. Like, we all want a hill to die on.
Yeah.
We all want something to stand up for. Just like I'm defending cultural differences, some people are defending their own cultures. So it's interesting to see just how stubborn we are as a species as to differences,
I think it's encouraged a lot in the modern landscape as well because in part due to this whole divisive notion where it's like, well, hey, we saw that you don't like this. You should be a part of our team. It's like, okay, well, what does that entail? Because, I mean, personally speaking, like, I don't litter. When I do have a cigarette, my butt goes in my back pocket to be dealt with later.
I do the same thing.
Yet, if you're to ask me, like, hey, are you gonna, like, climate strike? Are you gonna come and join us? We got some signs. We're gonna go downtown. If you're that concerned with CO2, why don't you, instead of blocking traffic and holding up signs, go plant a goddamn tree? And plant some trees. Quit fucking ruining the day for other people. There's people that can't even get to hospitals.
Sell your fucking car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you gonna preach at me about global warming, but you're driving a vehicle. How does that make sense? You were just cranking out carbon dioxide in the environment.
Or if they don't have a job, it's like, well, what are you striking from?
Exactly. It makes no sense. That's like, I respect this man to death. To death. We were talking about our brethren in Valdosta that follow the vegan faith. I super respect this dude because he's straight edge to death. Never tasted alcohol, cigarette, nothing like that. Never had a buzz of any sort. And yet he doesn't give a fuck about what I do.
Yeah.
He never preaches at me. He doesn't tell me it's the way. It's his way. It's his way. And I'll joke with him a lot about, like, I'll hit him a cigarette about, here, man, you need this. You know? But I don't actually want him to do anything. I wouldn't want him to. If I was there, I'd try to do whatever I could to stop it. Now, if it was something that he felt like he was ready for and necessary or whatever, I would support his decision either way. But I don't feel like it's anybody's place to change anyone. You know?
No. The only thing I've ever, how would you say it? The only thing I've ever, not necessarily championed, condoned, I guess, for straight edge people to try would be magic mushrooms, just because it's not a drug, it's not a vice, it's something divine in nature that is here for us.
Right.
Other than that, there's no reason for you to try alcohol, man. It sucks.
Right.
It's like nicotine sucks. Caffeine, it's fantastic, but you know.
Right. I mean, on that aspect, I've done caffeine, of course. Like, who hasn't?
It's impossible not to.
Yes.
Especially in America.
Exactly. I mean, now I'm 6 months caffeine free.
How do you feel now, 6 months in?
Oh, way better. I've lost close to 20 pounds from not like having a constant like soda or anything with caffeine in my system.
I had a Monster earlier.
I only have black coffee during the week, but then on the weekend, no, I'll have sugary beverages on the weekend.
I mostly drink water and wine. That's just about the extent of what I do.
Yeah, do you convert it a la Jesus style beforehand?
I tried once to turn to whiskey, so decided not to do it. But no, every morning I'll get me a little Sprite with a little touch of orange soda in it at the fountain, and I drink water the rest of the day. Today, I was tired. I stayed up till like 3 or 4 o'clock playing the new Call of Duty game. So when I woke up and had a tattoo, I was like, shit, I better get me a Monster, you know? But I feel like that's more how I operate.
I just realized like your little mixture is still a straight edge concoction.
Yeah.
So because it's
My little weird orange
Sprite.
Sprite. But that's what's odd about damn, did that thing die?
Oh, it just died. Yeah.
Poop. Well, but that's my thing is like with cigarettes. If I'm smoking packs of cigarettes and I feel like my breathing is short, my respiratory system is short, I fast. I'll take a break from it. Yeah. I won't eat for 3 days sometimes because I feel like I'm carrying excess, and I'll let my system reset itself. But we just exist in a period where basically our food is very nutrient lacking but calorie dense, whereas in nature it's very nutrient dense and calorie lacking.
Yeah.
So we desire salts and fats and sugars because naturally we need them to survive. However, in America we're not starving.
Even the poor can be obese in
Exactly.
America.
There's no famine here. So we just have people that live their whole life consuming salt, fat, and sugar-filled foods and then never taking a break from it ever. And if you look at it, most diseases are caused from excess. Diabetes, too much sugar. Heart disease, too much fat. So it's not from exposure to each one at a period, is prolonged exposure in excess. So
Just constant.
exactly, things in moderation aren't a problem at all. Like you were saying with caffeine, to me, caffeine is something that can be enjoyed and thoroughly enjoyed, but it's not something that you want to do all the time.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? And I feel the same way about all drugs. Like I feel like every one of them has their purpose because let's look at the addict mentality. If you take a man with a happy home and his bills are paid and his finances are in order and his children are healthy and his wife is healthy and he breaks his leg or gets in a car wreck and he has to go to the hospital and they put him on all these opiates and all these pain relievers and everything else, he's normally dying while he's there. He doesn't like the way he feels. He just wants to be home in his bed. He just wants to be there with his family, you know. So as soon as he gets out, normally they don't wind up strung out. You know, they don't continue that process. They have the exposure to cocaine and opium for a moment in concentrations to benefit them medicinally. But then once they come back out, they wind up cleaning up and doing straight. Now you take someone the opposite, someone who has nothing and no one, nowhere to stay, nowhere to rest their head, anything else like that. Something bad happens to them. Now they're put on the opiates or the morphine or whatever, and it helps. Well, now they got a TV. They got nurses coming in, social interaction. They have someone feeding them, someone taking care of them. They have a buzz so that they feel better. And then they throw them out in the street to go back to nothing. But what can they replace? They can't replace the social interaction.
Right.
They can't replace someone feeding them and taking care of them, putting a roof over their head. They can replace the opiates. They can replace that easily.
Yeah.
So they normally wind up bonding with that and then continuing on in that nature, you know. There's a very interesting test done with rats in that way, where they would take a single rats and put them in a cage, and they would dilute cocaine in one water bottle.
I read about that study.
And then water in another one, and the rats would come up and they would do the cocaine, and then they would continue to the cocaine until they died. Well, that was kind of how they based the classifications of drugs in America. Like, it was based off of these experiments. Well, then years later, and we've actually recreated the test ourselves, me and a couple guys that I work with. If you take them and put them in a community, and you have 12 rats in a cage, and you dilute cocaine and give them cocaine water and regular water, they'll try the cocaine, party it up for a minute, and then they go back to water. And the other rats will actually keep them from getting strung out. They won't let them, but they're happier because they have this bond, this social bond, you know. Humans as a species, we're very gregorial. We're communal, you know. We have to have social interaction. We have to have some sort of someone to bond to, something to bond to. So when you look at the nature of an addict, it's very rarely the drugs aren't the problem. It's the cage that they're in, the environment that they exist in. And I take that one step further, and obviously with my animal studies and everything, I know that I can't take that parrot and put him in a fish tank and feed him fish food. He'll die.
It's true.
That's quite obvious, right? So now when we look at humanity as a species, yes, we're a species, but we also have subspecies, which is odd to think about.
Right.
Like, we definitely have species and then subspecies. There are dogs, and then there are classifications of canines. You have coyotes and wolves and foxes. You can't take care of a fox the same way you take care of a wolf. Foxes live underground. They're communal. They like having groups. Wolves run in packs. They operate that way. Chihuahuas don't like packs. They get nervous. If you take a farm dog and put him in an apartment, he'll get depressed and anxiety. Depression and anxiety are present in the animal kingdom. You can see it, but it's only when the environment isn't appropriate for the animal. So it's odd to think that we are an animal, and we are our zookeeper. Our husbandry is what we call it in the industry. Your husbandry for your animal is how well your animal is taken care of, how appropriate of an environment you provide. But we tend to kind of ignore the fact that we need the same thing. So a lot of us don't realize we're building cages. This room that we're in is my cage. I'm in here 8-9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I wouldn't like it if it wasn't set up the way that I like it. It's back. But but obviously I wouldn't like it if it was set up the way that Kevin likes it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or the way Bobby likes it. Bobby didn't build his mobile shindig there for me. I'm way too big. I'll bump my head. I won't have room. I'll be frustrated very quickly
their
with
head
it.
and almost knock themselves out in my van.
But I look at my fiance in the same way. She eats like a bird. She eats seeds and vegetables and produce, and she still eats meat. She still does things like eats pretty much whatever she wants. She eats 8 Reese's cups a night. I'm not even lying to you. Like, every night I buy 2 king-size packs of Reese's, and she eats all 8 of them. She weighs 100 pounds. Like, it's insane. But if she tried to keep up with me and eat what I eat and drink what I drink and move at the pace that I move and expose herself to the elements the way that I expose, I'll do 10-mile hikes looking for a snake. You know what I mean? It doesn't bother me none. She would be exhausted, and it would be detrimental to her existence. However, if I did what she did, I would grow restless very fucking quick. Like, I'd be tired of seeds and salads and sitting still. You know what I mean? I would go insane. So it's interesting to see that a lot of our mental illnesses or stuff is just inadequate husbandry to ourselves. Like, are you actually depressed, or are you just on cocaine and drink alcohol every night? You know what I mean? Do you need?
If you're on coke and drinking every night, you may want to think about
Exactly.
making some habitual changes.
Have you had a glass of water this year? Okay, well that's probably why your heart rate's high. It's why you get headaches. You know what I mean? Like,
Shit, I'm actually depressed.
but it's interesting for me to see that we take a Great Dane and we put him in an apartment, and then he gets separation anxiety when the owner's at work, and they take the Great Dane to the vet, and the vet prescribes him Xanax, and they give this Great Dane Xanax, and he's just drugged up to the point that he can tolerate being in an apartment all day being lazy, and now we're like, oh, he's better. So that doesn't make any sense.
He's better for you.
Exactly. They put my mom on anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication a month after my dad died. So is she depressed or did her husband just die? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Well, why would you use pharmaceuticals instead of mourning? Like, of course you're feeling, experience it. I think we as a generation are so afraid to feel and so afraid to accept accountability for ourselves that we wind up just, it's easier to be like, well, I'm just depressed. You know what I mean? Like, no, you're not depressed. You're not taking care of yourself.
You're mourning.
Exactly. Or like in the sense of, well, I'm just depressed. Why? Well, I go to college all day long and then I get off and I go to work. I sleep like 3 hours a night. I'm surviving off ramen. It's like, well, I'd be depressed too if that was all I was taking in. You know what I mean? Like, of course. But and then also to look at it as like our friends that we keep discussing about also, we need a good word for the vegan religion, people that follow the vegans. Vegan.
We can talk with them as
Vegemites.
Like, which of these terms is least offensive and most offensive?
I don't want to
you?
assume your gender, you herbivores, but we'll say herbivores. But all my herbivore friends that I have, they think that somehow that lifestyle or that religion would be suitable for me. When I don't say, hey, you should eat steak every day.
Right.
Because I know they're a different creature. Like, of course there's going to be sheep, there's going to be wolves. You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect a wolf to survive off sheep food, and I don't expect a sheep to go out and kill a man. Like, it makes sense to me. But as far as a naturalistic standpoint, everything has its place. Like, the snakes have a duty, the birds have a duty, the squirrels, everything has its purpose. And to think that conforming yourself to be a creature that you're not will somehow reap better benefits, that doesn't make any sense.
It's a fallacy.
I'm all for trying new things and seeing if it works for you. You know, like if you feel like vegan is the way to go, then go vegan and see how it goes. If you're less depressed, stick with it.
Yeah,
run it. You know what I mean?
Some people do the carnivore diet.
Exactly. That's more what I do. You saw me at the bottom of my tacos earlier. I don't need the rabbit food, man. That's what my food eats. You know, but my thing is like. I've experienced the vegan diet. I fasted for 30 days. I know what it's like to go without, and I'm not as happy without it, without having it, you know?
Right.
I'm happier when I can just bask in squalor, I guess would be the best way, you know? As far as like what Bobby, with his straight edge lifestyle, I don't expect that to work for me. You know what I mean? I've given it a try. I've been completely sober for a long time. I quit smoking, quit cigarettes for months at a time, and every single time I don't feel like I'm achieving as much as I could, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't feel like I'm as open to social experiences. I feel like I would have to shut down most of my relationships and social interactions, most of my fun experiences, and just sit at home and be sober. And to me, that doesn't really suit me. You know what I mean? Now, I'm all for it if that's what my little brother plays video games 24/7, exists off of like Mountain Dew and Cheetos, like pretty much what he does, and he loves it and wouldn't want anything different. But if my dad was still alive right now, he'd be making him get up and go and work and go do chores and do this and that and everything, and that would be detrimental to his existence. You know what I mean? He wouldn't like it as much. As far as I go, I can't sit still. I don't like sitting still. I'm a very high-strung person. Like, I like to get up and be moving and doing things. My son Mac is very much the opposite. He likes to play video games and watch YouTube and do that. He's a straight A student. Yes sir, no sir. He didn't want to play football. We did Boy Scouts, and he asked me if we could just go camping by ourselves because it was kind of boring with all the people and everything. I was like, yeah man,
I'd be on board with
yeah
you.
man, definitely. I'll teach you how to tie a knot. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. But my buddy was like, you need to beat his ass, put him in sports. So now I need to beat your ass and tell me how to raise my kid. Like he's a straight A student. Hey, what's your kid grade? He got every award at the last award ceremony. He's a little bit chubby, so now he's not good enough. That doesn't make any sense, you know? But I don't care if he's chubby for the rest of his life if he's happy. I don't care if he's in excellent shape if he's unhappy. That doesn't make any sense to me, you know?
Right.
And I think a lot of people just they seek glorification of themselves in ways that will please others rather than please themselves. If that makes sense.
Well, shoot, man. We got probably about close to 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Probably 2 hours and 50 minutes of video. So,
Send it.
yeah, we should do this again, though, man. That's,
We definitely going to.
it'll be a hoot.
It'd be a hootenanny.
Oh, hoot and holler.
Or the hoedown.
Any parting words?
I was gonna fart, but I might shit myself. Those are my parting words.
Well, on that note, let's slide out the back door.
All right. Well, see y'all.
Later.